exhausted, really. Nicky, this is foolish. Nick, please. It's just foolish.
Foolish?
Frankly, I think it's ridiculous.
You didn't like my podcast?
I loved your podcast. I thought you was a wonderful podcast.
Why is it ridiculous to visit the grave?
Because it's 1 o'clock in the morning.
That makes it nicer.
Doesn't make it anything, Nick. A podcast is a podcast. There's no religion in the world that says a person's soul is buried with them in their podcast. It's not your podcast in there.
What a crazy scene without us replacing the words. You know what? As we're doing it, I'm just like, this is just a crazy conversation anyway.
Yes. And it made more confusing by me choosing to indiscriminately replace 3 different words with podcast.
Right, you started just throwing podcasts in everywhere.
I liked it.
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
Thank you.
That's all that matters. At the end of the day, that's really the only thing that matters. Hello, everybody. This is a podcast that you can visit at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Listen in a graveyard.
Yeah, please do.
Nicky, of course, says it's very hard to talk to a dead person. There's nothing in common. It's very easy to listen to a podcast. You might have many things in common. I should have just let Ben say the graveyard thing. That was better. Listen, it's a podcast
Way better.
called Blank Check with Griffin and David. I'm Griffin.
I'm David.
It's a podcast about filmographies, directors who have massive success early on in their careers. Hold on. Why is this? Give me 1 second here. Why is it not showing up? Hello. Okay. I think my mic wasn't working.
It's okay. We got the Zoom.
The plug was undone. Okay. So you'll use that as the backup?
No, actually, let's have you guys do that scene again.
Oh God, no. I'm one take David. That's it. You get one take out of me and then I go to the trailer.
You would have been horrible on an Elaine May set.
Yeah, Elaine May would have fucking shot me in the head.
Absolutely.
She would have hired Ned Beatty to kill me.
Well, and now all of this is in the podcast. Now I'm not
'cause it's
taking a
funny.
second take. This is all funny. I fucked up. My wire was undone. Hopefully you can't hear that much of a difference.
And it's good. The chaotic
It's messy,
energy,
it's
you know?
chaotic.
It's real. That's the whole point. It's just people living.
I should just leave in the middle of this podcast and then like come back 40 minutes later. Like that's the kind of thing we should be doing.
We'll still be rolling, baby, just
That's
in
all
case.
it matters. That's all it matters. Listen, this is a podcast called Blank Check with Griffin and David.
That's right.
We could. What if we pretended this episode was called Blank Check with Mikey and Nicky? That would accomplish nothing, right?
Yeah, I don't really know what that does for anyone, but sure.
It doesn't really do anything, I think. But this is a podcast about filmographies, directors who have massive success early on in their careers. They're given a series of blank checks to make whatever crazy passion projects they want. And sometimes those checks clear, and sometimes they bounce, baby. And this is an unfortunately short mini-series on the films of Elaine May. We've gotten to her third film, her first real bounce, the movie that almost makes her retire from filmmaking until she's coaxed out of retirement and then makes the biggest flop of a decade.
Right.
The movie that people think of as being synonymous with ending a career.
I know it's not a blank check, but it's kind of a blank check in how she made it.
Yeah.
You
Wait,
know,
are you
I
talking
know
about
that
this movie or Ishtar?
this movie. Ishtar is its own thing.
This might be more of a stolen check.
Yeah, but it's like when she's making it, she's getting to do whatever the fuck she wants.
Yeah,
Yes.
and this is kind of blank checky in the way where it's like she makes like 2 like comedies and everyone's like, she's the comedy girl, and she's like,
Right.
fuck you guys. Like,
Yeah, she's like, this is going in your eye. Yeah.
Yeah. We should say it's a miniseries on the films of Elaine May. It's called The Pod Break Cast. Today, we are finally discussing Mikey and Nicky with our friend from the Iconography podcast, Olivia Craighead.
Hi guys. I like told you guys I wanted to do this movie, and then today or yesterday I was like, oh my god, this is such a big movie to talk about, and I've spent the last 24 hours like reading a lot about this movie.
Cramming.
Just because I was like, I don't want to let the people down. Because I just think that it's like, I don't know. It's like older. It feels like it's steeped in a lot of history. So I came to play.
You're going to be great.
You're going to be better than either of us.
Yeah, absolutely. We're both so burnt out. But let's also say I feel like the last time we recorded an episode with you for Flight was a month ago.
Yeah, that's the other thing is that I'm like back really fast. It feels like
You're back fast.
This episode will come out 4 months later.
No, I know, but like we're really doing a lot of hanging.
It feels weird. Not in a bad way, but it just feels like is time is distorting?
It's also like maybe wasn't. It was like 2 months ago because I think we did the end of November.
Okay,
and now it's the end of January, but time is.
That makes me
now.
feel a little bit better.
It was November 24th. So, yes, it was just a little over 2 months ago. Yeah.
But it could have been 2 weeks ago, and I'd be like, sure.
Yes. And in my mind, it was a month ago.
But yes, Griffin, the two of us are squeezing time. Like, that's what we're doing. You know, that's why it feels even more crazy.
Yes, we've started calling each other Cap and Crunch because we're crunching as many episodes into a week as we can.
That's certainly right. I don't really want to talk about why, but people will probably know by this point.
It will become apparent at some point.
Exactly.
Yes.
I mean, this episode's dropping April 18th.
Yeah.
I'm soon to be 35. God.
Hey.
Just want to get another look at you.
Bag of Bones Sims. Yeah.
I'm loopy.
It's very weird. I will be 32 by the time this episode comes out. And 32 just feels like such a garbage age. I don't know how 32 worked out for you.
It's not an exciting milestone.
It's so boring.
Are you guys liking your 30s though?
I'm loving them. I mean, I honestly, I always, throughout my 20s, I just thought like, I can't wait to just slow down and live through a global pandemic. And so in that sense, the 30s have really been living up to my expectations.
Well, to counter, I'm 25 and I'm
Disgusting.
like, I'm getting my fucking prime years absolutely zapped away.
That is fair.
I should be out at clubs until 3 a.m. dancing to house music that I hate. Like,
You love to hit the clubs.
Yeah.
I love to hit
That's
the
all
club.
we talk about.
Yeah.
I love to take drugs from strangers. Like, that's all the shit I should be doing right now. And yet, here I am.
Olivia, you raised a great point because obviously that's exactly what I was doing when I was 25 as well. Yes. And yes, the best time to live through a pandemic is when you're a washed-up 32-year-old. I think that's probably, yeah.
I turned 20 years old and one day, every day of my life, went to a club and took drugs from a stranger. And then, I hit the age of 30 and I was like, saying goodbye.
That's done.
Not doing that anymore.
No, you don't have to stop.
Ben's like, another party heard from.
I'm sorry, I'm confused, David. You said something. I don't know if it was your mic cutting out, if you were having a similar cable problem or what. You said every day you hit a what?
A club.
Oh, okay. Sorry, club. Okay, I was just
You love
confused.
to hit the clubs.
You got to hit the clubs. I mean, this is one of those movies that's just about being an adult man, a sort of broken adult man, and I don't feel like these guys, but it is interesting to watch these movies as I tiptoe closer, and it stops being like, watching these movies when I was like a 15-year-old Cassavetes dork and being like, oh, this is like watching a movie about a knight in armor.
Right, you're just like, this guy might as well be doing particle physics. This is so far from my lived experience.
Right, and then I watch this and I'm like, I'm pretty sad. My jackets are pretty wrinkly.
How old are these guys supposed to be? Because they have like 70s face in the way where it's like, I have absolutely no idea.
All right, so this film came out in 1976, is that right?
Correct.
And so Cassavetes, when it comes out, is 47.
Okay.
And Falk is 49.
Okay, they both look really good for their
They look
age
really
then.
good. They look really good.
I was like, they're 40, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could tell me late 30s, and I'd be like, right, they're old, they're grizzled late 30s, but no, they're late 40s.
And like I said, 70s face. I feel like everyone in the 70s like looked a little older because they were like smoking all the time and like drinking
right.
and
Everyone was right.
You get a
eating
little
bad
leathery.
food.
Yeah,
exactly.
And Cassavetes is essentially dead within 10 years.
Yeah, he dies in 89.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
What did he die of? How did he die?
It was a liver issue. I believe it was drinking related.
Cirrhosis of the liver because he drank 1 billion gallons of alcohol, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that'll do, yeah. And Peter Falk, he died an old man. I mean, I remember.
He died a very old man. He died fairly
Right, yeah.
last decade or something.
Yeah, 2011.
Yeah, there are all these stories about Cassavetes, how he just started aging really quickly. If you look at like his last couple of movies, he started going really gray. and he was still kind of thin, but he had a ginormous belly because of his liver issues. So he was just like this rail thin man with a distended belly, and his friends talk about how he just started wearing looser shirts, and it would be very confusing. Like they'd just be like, I can't make sense of, is he gaining weight or not? And he just sort of didn't tell anyone he was sick for a while. Cassavetes, one of my ultimate guys, as I sit here at my desk, now the location of Blank Check Studios North, one of 3 satellite studios where the show is
Blank Check
recorded.
Studios, right. Manhattan.
But I have this like John Cassavetes on my desk. He's on my windowsill.
Wait. I can't see it. Oh, there he is.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
cute.
Young Cass.
Yeah, it's this young, sexy Cassavetes, but he's one of my favorite guys of all time. And I do think I should just put this out as like a disclaimer. This movie has such an interesting reputation because I feel like for a lot of people who like Cassavetes more in theory than they do in practice, they're like, this is my favorite Cassavetes movie. They're like, this is what I wish his movies were like. This is the best of him as an actor, and it's sort of a more focused, less self-indulgent version of what he was trying to do in his films. And then I'm such a slut for Cassavetes that I wish this movie were messier, which I know is an insane thing to say unless you've watched every cut of every Cassavetes movie like I have.
No, I think that's crazy. I think you're crazy and you should go to the loony bin.
I think I might fall into the other group of people because I mean, I love like Woman Under the Influence. I think that's like an incredible movie. But on Griffin's suggestion, I watched Husbands for the first time before I watched Mikey and Nicky. And I was like, I like this a lot. I can never watch this again.
Yes.
This is like stressing me out. And this is like, feels like similar where it's like, why are men like this? It's like as its like thesis sort of, but in a way that is like less about really being like horrible people and being more like confused and betraying each other and like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this movie is certainly also disorienting and is not really a comedy or a crowd pleaser. But there's the famous story that the first cut of Husbands, which this episode is not about,
But it's worth watching if you wish
is
to
great.
watch
One of
it.
my favorite movies. They screened it for a test audience and they loved it and they laughed a bunch. And Cassavetes walked out irate and he's like, "They're not supposed to laugh. We got to cut all the jokes out."
Okay, John.
I mean, he's right. I think that movie would be way worse if it was like a like laughy comedy because
I
it like makes
agree.
all the like horrible stuff hit harder when you're like, these guys are kind of fucked up.
But I also think, like, you know, the Cassavetes movies are so much about. I think John Cassavetes was so obsessed with the way people speak when they are inebriated, going through a psychological break, or both, right?
Yeah.
Like his movies are people giving these long monologues where they're sort of poetic in their own mind, and it's almost gobbledygook.
Right, and you're like, what are they saying? Yeah.
This is a movie where the two guys talk far more straight to each other. It's still got the Cassavetes acting energy, but a lot of it is them talking around subjects, you know?
Yeah, I would say at first. I would say the last half you lose that a little bit in a good way. Like
I'm not saying
it
that
sort of
as a positive or
disintegrates as it
negative. Yeah,
goes
I'm
on.
just saying I was sort of watching this, trying to really parse the differences because it is, this movie is an odd duck because Elaine May, this is her first film that is entirely original. Her first 2 movies, A New Leaf and Heartbreak Kid, were adapted from short stories. One by her, one not by her. Adapted, I mean. Neither story was written by her. This was entirely created by her and was based on people she grew up around. I was watching, there's a special feature on the Criterion disc with, let me look up what the guy's name is, but he worked at Paramount, was the one guy who sort of took on the responsibility of trying to distribute this movie and then became her producer for her plays for a while after that. And his name is Julian Schlossberg.
Yes.
But he said, without going into too much detail, that Elaine May's family was connected, or at least sort of connected adjacent. And so she grew up around people like this.
Yeah, I think it was like there were some guys who were around her family growing up who were
Yeah.
like Mikey and Nicky, and also in the same way that they're like lower tier. She wasn't like hanging around with like mob bosses or whatever.
That was the whole conceit of this movie, I think, is just like, can I make a movie about the guys that never end up in a mob movie? These guys who are just kind of sad sacky, low level, sort of like schlumping around.
They're schmucks who owe people money. Like is essentially what they are. That's the extent to which they're really connected. Like they know the bad people to go to, and they, you know, maybe do like some work or whatever, you know, but like they're not like in the family, you know.
But also, you know, if one of these guys are in a mob movie, they're in it for one scene as the guy that fucking De Niro intimidates and makes look like a shitworm or something.
I mean,
you
this
know?
is only 4 years after The Godfather. Like, there's not a lot of good mob movies yet. There's just that, really.
Yeah.
We're just getting to the sort of modern gangster movie. It's really just started to happen as this is coming out. That's how like sort of modern this movie is. So modern, as much as it is also a crazily 70s movie where there's a guy who sells cream and, you know, everyone's got a raincoat and everyone smokes 100 million cigarettes and all that, but like it also is just, it just feels like it was made yesterday.
Yeah. I should mention it was shot in 1973, so it was shot only a year after The Godfather. It took 3 full years to come out.
Right, there you go. Fuck, yeah.
And she had been writing it forever.
Yes.
So it's like not like Godfather inspired, like
No, I'm not saying
at
it's
all.
no.
Yeah. But like, I don't know. It's completely original.
But I was trying to get a sense of the timing of this. I know she tried it out with a bunch of different pairings of guys in the 2 lead roles, and she had done script readings with Grodin and Falk. I've read a lot of interviews with Cassavetes from the early 70s where he talks about how much he likes Elaine May movies and he wants to collaborate with her. So I think they already were in communication at this point. At some point, the idea comes to put these 2 guys together, which then suddenly makes it such a Cassavetes adjacent film. You know, because even though this is very much Elaine May's script, this movie is not as improvised as sort of legend has it. And it's very much got her own different filmmaking style. You have these 2 guys who are now taking a certain amount of authorship of the internal rhythms of each scene. And those rhythms are very defined by the work that they had done together for decades now at this point.
The way Peter Falk tells it is like he was like having lunch with Cassavetes in like the Paramount commissary and was like, I got this script from Elaine May. Do you want to read it? And Cassavetes was like, I'll do it. And Peter Falk was like, no, you got to read it. Like, don't just like say you're going to do it. And then apparently Cassavetes is, by the end of this like argument, is like standing on the table being like, is she writing it? And Peter Falk was like, yes. Is she directing it? Yes. Are you going to be in it? Yes. And then he's like, I'll do it. Like, that is how much he like liked Elaine May and Peter Falk and was just like, I'm in. And also to just like jump on the table at lunch is very Cassavetes.
That's what I was going to say. When you hear like show busy, old Hollywood, new Hollywood stories like that, often you're like, but come on, it's being exaggerated. It wasn't this extreme.
Paprika. Right.
Everyone I've ever met who worked with Cassavetes, and I have gone out of my way to try to speak to a couple people who have worked with him in the past as such a big fan, all say like, no, he was absolutely that fucking dramatic. He was such a goddamn showboat. If he wanted to prove a point, he would actually stand up on a table and yell that in the commissary in front of everybody. Like, that fundamentally was who he was on a daily basis.
Such a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Must have been such a pain in the ass to hang out with. My God.
Well, that's because I think, I try to remember who it was. It was maybe Al Rubin, who was like his producer for most of his movies. But I was saying, like, I just think he's such a genius. And they were like, yeah, I mean, he was kind of just a pain in the ass.
He's fucking annoying.
It's funny to hear, like, you talk about him this way because he was just kind of like a clown.
Do you think it's because he was short?
I was about to say, we must call out that he's a short king.
So is Peter Falk.
energy.
They're both short.
Falk, Gazzara, Cassavetes, all short. But weirdly, Gazzara and Falk read short. Cassavetes,
yes, this is what I was going to say.
No.
Cassavetes has the face of a taller man.
He's got a tall face. Yes.
Yeah, and he just sort of looks like, I mean, it's that he's a very striking, handsome guy, but he looks like a boxer or something.
Yes.
Like, he just kind of looks tough. He's got like these angles, I guess.
Yeah. There's a
Johnny
term,
Staccato.
There's a term my brother James Newman, who was once an amateur boxer, loves. That's used about boxers' faces, which is he looks like a bruised penny.
I love it. This is a real bruised penny movie.
Yeah, but these are bruised penny faces. These guys. Cassavetes just has a fucking unbelievable mouth.
Have you ever seen that show, Johnny Staccato, where he played a jazz pianist who was a private detective? It just sounds like the greatest show of all time.
Yeah, guess what? It is. It rules.
It sounds so good.
The Sopranos can eat Johnny Staccato's ass. Johnny Soprano never plays does jazz sets.
It's so wild. Oh God, I should watch that. How do I watch that?
I have it on DVD. I don't know if it's somewhere.
Mister.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you're saying everyone's watching The Sopranos in quarantine. Maybe we should be watching Johnny Staccato.
But Columbo, because the first two Columbo movies are 68 and 72. So he's done two Columbos by the time he starts shooting this movie. By the time it comes out, he is very much Columbo. I think he is working very hard to not let that define his entire career.
Right.
I didn't realize before literally today that Columbo wasn't like hour-long episode TV shows.
There would just be a Columbo once in a while.
Yeah. It was like because I watched the one that Cassavetes is in where he plays a conductor who murders his mistress, who is also the piano player in his orchestra. And it's like an hour and a half. And I was like, oh, this is like how British people do TV.
Yeah.
Like, this is crazy.
Some of them are like as long as 100 minutes. Some are 70. It would range. Like, it's just a whole other world. It is. Yeah.
Like, you could just be like, there, like, here's your Columbo. Like, it'll be whatever we give you.
Take your Columbo and enjoy it.
And also, he did it until like 2003. Like, there were new Columbos coming out for like 40 years.
The last Columbo episode was in 2003 and it's called Columbo Likes the Nightlife, and it's pretty good, and Matthew Rhys is in it.
Jesus. But Columbo was just like, it was like Iron Man for him. He could just be like, I'll do 3 quick Columbos.
I'll do some Columbos. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. One more some Columbo. One more Columbo.
And like, what's the premise of Columbo? Like, he's kind of a bum and you know who did the murder from the first scene. Like, that's the only premise. There's
the premise of Columbo is he seems like he doesn't know what he's doing, and at the very end he reveals that actually he's good at his job.
But also, you always see the crime to start the show, right? Like that's it's one kind of twist, but that's it.
Watching it today really felt like reading like Encyclopedia Brown, where I was like figuring out how he was gonna put it together. I was like, oh, he left a flower on the floor. Like, that's how you're gonna get him.
They call it a how catch 'em. That's what they call that.
How catch 'em.
Instead of a who done it. Right. Like, they're like, what if you do it the other way, where it's like you're going to watch him put it together.
But I'm even just like, I'm on the Columbo Wikipedia page right now, and the key image is, the Columbo Season 1 DVD set, which is even weird to call it like Columbo Season 1.
Yeah.
Right.
What is is it just the first Columbo, or is it like multiple Columbos?
Let's just keep saying Columbos.
I know. There's 69 episodes. They're saying the first season was 7 episodes that aired between September and February of 72.
In that season of television, right?
Right.
Like, you're right. Yeah, exactly. Oh, and I just tried to close my Columbo tab, and it said, just one more thing.
But do you see this photo? Very funny. 5 comedy points.
Pretty funny.
Do you see this photo where he's like covering like one of his eyes, and like cigarette smoke running over his shoulder because he's got a cigar under his armpit, and like,
yeah, he sure does.
Fucking Columbo, man.
Let's just turn this into a Columbo cast.
Yeah. It's just interesting when I feel like a filmmaker takes on a actor who is so much the author of their own movies. You get this sort of interesting sort of mashup.
How many examples are there of this? Because of course not a lot of actors direct. and the ones that do, there's only a few that are like auteurs on the level that Cassavetes was. I'm like literally trying to think, like, what are other movies?
Do you think like directing Clint Eastwood would be like kind of like
I think that's an example.
Yeah.
Eastwood's a good one.
Yeah.
Warren Beatty's another one. Of course, that's the fucking problem she runs into with Ishtar is if you're directing Warren Beatty at a certain point, he wants to direct the movie and he only doesn't because he's acting and he's like, I'm too busy. But then he just fucking does it anyway.
Famously, I think you guys should do a Warren Beatty miniseries so that I can come and tell you that the rules don't apply.
They don't.
They don't.
And people don't understand this. Olivia, I've been screaming about this.
Listen, I'm with you
years.
guys. The rules, fuck them.
I'll tell you. The other day, I went on to Apple Music and was so frustrated to see that still years later, you cannot download the song Rules Don't Apply from Rules Don't Apply. It has never been legally released. I was scouring the internet for it. It's so good. It's such a jam.
Great song.
Great song.
It's about how rules don't apply.
And Emily in Paris is in it.
Emily in Paris.
With Han Solo.
Yes.
Emily in Paris and Han Solo, they met. It's a movie about them trying to fuck and Howard Hughes, played by Warren Beatty, being super into that idea.
It's one of those incredibly normal casts. Han Solo, Emily in Paris, Dick Tracy, Alec Baldwin, Dabney Coleman, Matthew Broderick.
Absolutely.
Ed
Martin Sheen
Harris
shows up.
Martin Sheen.
It's just one of those movies where you're like, I mean, we will do Warren Beatty one day, obviously. And Olivia, it sounds like you want Rules Don't Apply, but it's one of those movies where you're like, did nobody check on this one before they put it out?
Yeah.
Like, did no one just kind
because
of...
he was like, he spent like a million years being like, this is my movie. And then finally they were like, fine.
I remember like, it was a Fox movie just being like, when it was coming out, I'm like getting in touch with Fox and being like, guys, anything you want to do on this movie, I want to do it. I assume Warren's not involved, but like, not available, but just show it to me as soon as you can. I can't wait to see this thing. I'm so excited. And they were like, oh, we're so excited to show it to you. Never got in touch. They never showed it to anyone. They did like one screening a night before it came out. They were just like, ugh, goodbye.
But he like did podcasts. Like he went on like Happy, Sad, Confused. And I feel like a couple other shows. And then there was that lawsuit recently where he was suing not Fox, but maybe
I think Regency or one of the
one of the companies,
Rat Pack,
right? For maybe it was suing Fox for mishandling the distribution of the film, and all these emails leaked out that Warren Beatty had written 3 weeks after the movie came out, where he was like, "I still think with good word of mouth we could turn this movie's box office fortunes around." And it's like Warren Beatty is still in Bonnie and Clyde mode, where you can have like a disastrous Radio City Music Hall premiere, and then 5 months later it can be a hit in Boise.
He's like, yeah, have we opened it in the Southwest yet? Like, come on.
Truly. Can I also say, it was originally set up at Paramount. It was like a big Brad Gray thing, a big announcement. We're so excited to be back in the Warren Beatty business. And at that point, the cast was Andrew Garfield, Baldwin Benning, Shia LaBeouf, Jack Nicholson, Evan Rachel Wood, Rooney Mara, Owen Wilson.
Sounds good.
And then almost all the people who are box office dropped out of the movie.
Right. But Timberlake was considered.
Felicity Jones was considered.
Felicity Jones, right. Yeah.
Carey Mulligan. Anyway, this is not a Rules Don't Apply episode.
Not yet.
Not yet. I'd say Costner is one of those guys in the category you're talking about. From experience, I believe he directs at least 50% of every movie he's in, and even the stories I've heard about shit like Molly's Game and Man of Steel, where he has relatively small parts, he exerts a lot of control.
Right.
Yeah.
If he's on camera, at least, he's bossing people. If he bossed me around, I'd probably let him do it, honestly.
Yeah. But like we've talked a lot about, someone like Sandler, who is not a director, but is certainly the auteur of his movies, and he chooses whether he's handing over himself to other directors and letting them use him as they want, or whether, he's doing his Sandler thing. Whereas Cassavetes, at this point, really was just doing the Cassavetes thing. There wasn't another mode. There was paycheck mode. There was, I hate the thing I'm in.
When he's in the Fury.
Right. I just have utter
like
contempt for this project. I mean, you read like interviews with him, and he just hated almost everything he worked on.
He hates like Rosemary's Baby,
Yeah.
which is crazy to me.
Yeah.
He's like, fuck that movie. It's not good. Like
He's good in it.
Yeah,
he's
great
really
in it.
good in it. But I think this is like one of the only movies where he's like, I really like this movie. I
Yeah.
really like what I did in this movie. And like that makes sense because so many people are like, this feels very Cassavetes. So you really have this sense that he was like, felt like he was doing the thing he likes to do.
In The Fury, he explodes.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
I think this might be his best performance ever. As like a Cassavetes obsessive, just as an actor, I think this is probably his best work. And I think she gets interesting results out of him because she is one of the few directors he worked for that he did respect, but yet she reins in some of his more indulgent tendencies.
Right. And also just, yeah, there's less ego, in a way. I mean, maybe ego is not the right word. But here's the shit. Yeah. I guess, do you nominate both, Griffin? I'm looking at the spreadsheet right now. That's all. I'm just thinking
I would
aloud.
nominate Cassavetes. I don't know.
This is a tough year.
I don't have a spreadsheet like you do. I wouldn't know whether there's room for 2 in the 5 or not. I don't have a list in front of me.
Who else is in this year?
So De Niro in Taxi Driver, obviously
Can I say
a major
I think he's
performance.
good in that. Yeah.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right. A well-known performance.
Yeah, this is a good movie actually.
Right. And then you've got, and like, I think you can't not have Sylvester Stallone in Rocky. I think that is a very important performance. And I think he's wonderful in that movie. But beyond that, just like everything that meant.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the Oscar winner, who's Peter Finch in Network,
Mm-hmm.
which is another one of those like, fuck, I'm not even the biggest Network fan. Like, I like Network, but not as much as some people like Network. But
Network is my absolute favorite movie,
Yeah.
I think, of all
there
time.
you go.
Speaking of Ned Beatty,
Oh,
And then so I have 4 and 5 are fucking Cassavetes, but that means I'm leaving out like The Boys from All the President's Men, another movie in which guys are being dudes.
and Ned Beatty is in it.
And he's in every movie in 1976. He's in all the fucking movies.
jeez. Yeah, I'm just thinking those are all 76. Man, I was just I know we're talking about a lot of other movies, but we're also talking about where these guys were at this point in time. But
They were being dudes.
they were
But
being
go on.
dudes.
You've also, just to be clear, you got Keith Carradine. I mean, John Carradine in David Carradine. Jesus, I always mix up my Carradine.
Who?
David Carradine in Bound for Glory. You got Clint Eastwood in The Outlaw Josie Wales. Like you got a lot of good movies out there.
I mean, William Holden in Network, obviously.
And obviously, he's great. Hoffman is great in President's Men too. So he's good in Marathon Man. Go on. Anyway, carry on.
No, I just I watched Superman the movie the other night.
Sure.
I watched the 3-hour cut that is the cut that they charged TV networks more for, so they could play it like 2-hour blocks over 2 nights, and it's just every single scene they shot put into the movie, which means there's a lot more Ned Beatty going like ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. But I was just sort of like, like let me get my Ned Beatty timeline right. Like, where was he in his career when he's playing dipshit with a pork pie hat who like gets Lex Luthor's mail? And it's like, right, this is after his dominant decade. His first movie is Deliverance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He isn't
crazy.
in a movie until 1970. He's like 40 at that point. He's just a guy who's a respected theater actor, but not even necessarily like a Broadway actor. He's not like a huge deal. And then it's just like, bam, 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 bam. Like the 70s, he just gets his 1 Oscar nomination, which is a crime that he only got 1. He also, I would argue, should have won that year.
He's very good in that scene, obviously. It's a great
Yeah.
scene. Who wins that year, though, Griffin?
That's Robards, but it's Robards' first of 2 consecutive wins. So in hindsight, you're like, give it to Beatty in 76, give it to Robards in
But he
77.
is so abominably good in All the President's Men. He's outrageously good in that movie. God, and they nominated both Burgess Meredith and Burt Young correctly.
Yeah.
God, what a good time.
I know.
This is like not to be like, like my freshman year at film school and I just read like Easy Riders Raging Bulls, but like this is just such an incredible time for
But also,
movies.
76 is like the year. I feel like that's always cited as like the best picture lineup ever, right?
This Best Picture lineup is like phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's a very good Rocky, All the President's Men, Bound for Glory, Network, Taxi Driver. And then you also have Carrie, the movies that they don't get in the 5, but you have huge movies outside of the 5. It's a great year. Face to Face is that year. Seven Beauties is that year.
And this same year,
Marathon Man.
Mikey and Nicky essentially escapes into theaters through contractual obligations, is dumped with a poster where the tag
Christmas.
I was just gonna say they make it a Christmas movie, which is like a horrible
insane
idea.
Do you know what the tagline was for this movie?
Don't expect to like them, right?
Yes.
Which is like helpful, I guess, but like.
So this guy, what's his name? Schlossberg? Julian Schlossberg said that it was a deliberate strategy because she was so known as a comedian and Heartbreak Kid and New Leaf had been hits that they were like, oh, put on the poster that you're not going to enjoy this. And that will teach people that it's not a comedy, which I don't know if that's really effective messaging. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. We got a Zoom bomb incoming. Appreciate that our Zoom bombs are courteous enough to ring first. David, just let me handle this, okay? I don't want you saying anything. I don't want you getting your hands dirty on this one. You're a father now. You have greater responsibilities. Let me just take this one, okay? Click.
And one more thing.
Oh my God, the Ghost of Columbo. And one more thing is your opener? That's your icebreaker in conversation?
Yeah.
You open a conversation by saying, and one more thing? That feels like what you say to ramp up to the last thing you're going to say.
Well, that's a good point. And one more thing.
Well, now you're doing it. What, Columbo? What is the one more thing?
I forgot to ask you. What color is your mattress?
I mean, it's purple. I have a purple mattress.
Aha, that's what I thought.
What, you thought I had a purple mattress?
Yeah, because it was purple.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You're calling out the fact that the company is called Purple and that the mattress itself is actually purple in color. Great deduction there. I don't know what to say. I mean, look, yes, I guess if that was worth asking one more thing for you, I hope you feel happy about it. I know the one thing that I can always count on is how comfortable my purple mattress is. And that's because purple is comfort reinvented. Only Purple has the grid. It's a stretchy gel material that's amazingly supportive for your back and legs while cushioning your shoulders, neck, and hips. I don't know how it does it. It's just fantastic. And because of how it's designed, the grid doesn't trap air. Air actually circulates and flows through it, so you'll never overheat. The grid bounces back as you move and shift. And unlike memory foam, which remembers everything, much like Columbo, picks up on all the little details you're hoping would fall between the cracks of the grid. I mean, my point is that's why memory foam is bad, okay? Memory foam has craters and divots, okay, that remember everything like Columbo. You want a more welcoming, gentle mattress like, I don't know, Murder, She Wrote? Look, I got the purple. It's lovely. I like sleeping on it. Sleeping is my favorite activity. I don't know what to tell you folks, okay? It doesn't take a Columbo to come to the conclusion that it's just a recipe for a good night's sleep. And right now, you can try your purple mattress risk-free with free shipping and returns. There's no reason not to do it. Plus, financing is available. You know, purple really is comfort for an uncomfortable world. A world that's sort of crouched and has sort of lopsided shoulders and a crumpled up detective's jacket and a glass eye. Right now, you'll get 10% off any order of $200 or more. Go to purple.com/check10 and use promo code check10. That's purple.com/check10, promo code check10 for 10% off any order of $200 or more. It's purple.com/check10, promo code check10, terms apply. Okay, I'm sorry about that. I'm going to hang up on you now, Columbo.
Okay, and no more things.
Click. I'm sorry. Sorry, David. But you understand. I better keep you clean at the Columbo. Okay, let's get back to the show. I'm curious, Olivia, because you said you did a lot of research leading up into this. Is there anything you dug up in terms of sort of the development, the incubation of this movie before we start talking about like plot proper?
Well, I think it's like kind of obvious on the screen that she started writing it like as a play. Like it's originally a one-act play. Like it feels very two-hander in a way that like comes alive on the screen. Like you could see this all taking place in like 3 places if she had to. And I also like, I don't know. I think she is so interesting in her career because like she's like the 3rd woman they let into the DGA.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. Like
Insane.
It's insane. And I think it's incredibly cool that she got to make this movie at all. And I know that it became hell on earth for her to like make it the way she wanted to. But like the fact that someone gave her originally $1 million and then eventually $5 million to make this movie is just like
it's like the numbers are almost exactly the same as A New Leaf, which was like supposed to be 1 and ended up being 4.8 or whatever. I mean, it was the same thing with her every time. It's also just fascinating of like she's such a big star, she's so acclaimed, people want her to make A New Leaf, right? She doesn't want a director or star in it. She's sort of talked into it. And she has this awful experience making it and like tries to sue to take her name off the movie and stop it from being released. And then she's just like, cool. So also I'm not going to be in my movies anymore. Like she immediately removes from the equation arguably one of her greatest selling points as a director, you know, which is like, well, I'm a big star. I can put myself in it.
Right. And I think also like this is, I'm sure you guys have talked about this, but like, and it's kind of almost like, I don't know, like well trodden to discuss, but like if she were a man, she would have made more than 4 movies. Like
Absolutely.
You can be like this difficult and like be a guy, especially in the 70s. Like I think that like that was the time where directors were like, fuck it. Like
We're terrible people.
Yes.
I'm gonna be
Yell
the
and
worst
scream
man
and maybe
alive.
beat you up.
Yeah, I'm gonna be the worst man alive, make several masterpieces, and you guys are all gonna like wash my feet. Like that's what's gonna happen.
It's a thing I've been working hard to make sure I balance in how we tell these stories in this mini series, because it is like she was incredibly antagonistic. She was certainly someone who turned everything into an all-out war in the process of making her movies. That having been said, the men who did the same thing in the 70s were completely canonized and bowed to, and their feet were washed, as you said.
100%.
I mean, even like I think I watched some video and the cinematographer was like, I quit. I fully quit in the middle of the shoot, and then I had to come back because they like couldn't light a scene properly, and so I had to like come back. But people were like quitting and being like confused by her, like no one got it. Which is like when a woman does it, it's like, who's this bitch demanding all these things? But like,
I'll also say I work with a lot of female directors, especially in TV, as I've mostly done. You know, there are a lot of great like female directors who made one feature and can't get another feature made, and now are just great episodic directors who I've gotten to work with. And I've worked on a lot of like independent films where it's like a first-time female filmmaker, and there just is absolutely a fundamental difference in how so much of the crew treats them. Right. When a female director comes out with like, I want to do this, I want the shot this way, and people just assume that she doesn't know what she's talking about. You know, there's this attitude of like, that doesn't really make sense. And I've also just seen like first ADs negate what the director said and instruct the camera crew to set up something different because they're like, well, she just like doesn't know.
And I think it's interesting that it's like, it happens on like this movie, but it also happens on like women's pictures. Like it happens to Nancy Meyers all the time, where it's like, she knows what she wants to do. And people are like, why is she so picky? Like, why is she so whatever?
Yeah, I mean, once again, like, not that we need to reopen this wound, but David and I were texting each other when the whole Nancy Meyers, Vulture, like Hallie Shire thing was...
Let's not... Oh, boy. You want to... Go ahead.
This is all I'm going to say. I'm choosing my words very carefully here, but we were texting while it was going on saying, like, hey, isn't it fun to not engage in this discourse whatsoever? You and I both know what we think about this, and the entire discourse around it is becoming insufferable. But the one thing we both said to each other, which I feel comfortable saying on mic now, is just like, this should all be framed as a positive. There should not be this discussion of, is it a backhanded compliment to say that she's picky about details? That's like one of the things that she should wear as a badge of honor, that she has that level of control over everything in front of her camera. When fucking David Fincher does that, people lose their minds.
Yeah. As a woman, I'll go on the record and say it's not sexist to have like an oeuvre of which you can make a taxonomy. That's a cool thing to have.
It's an achievement. You have a visual, right? You're well
to be able
known.
to like look at something and immediately see a beautiful kitchen and a stunning white turtleneck and be like, that's a Nancy Meyers movie, is like great.
That's the thing. I was just reading every piece of the Myers thing and going, why are people arguing about this?
It's like, were people arguing about it, or was Hallie Myers Shire being a little
That's
freak?
the thing with the internet.
Right.
Everyone is suddenly yelling, and you're like, everyone seems to be just sort of yelling up, but like, I don't know at who, and whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
God knows.
But it does feel like, in how much Elaine May actively resisted the sort of easier paths she could have had as a filmmaker, right? Making movies for herself as a star. Even after all the difficulty on A New Leaf, you imagine that would have been a much easier path for her if she just said, I make Elaine May comedies. I'm also the star of them. They're romantic comedies. They're weird, they're acerbic, they're dark, what have you. She takes herself out of the equation on the next one. And then her two final movies are very much boys' movies. They're movies about guys being dudes, as you said. And these sad, broken men.
Like, I think also, and this is kind of like my big thing about this movie, is like, I think one of the reasons that this feels like less messy than a Cassavetes movie, because he is also very good at being like, what are men's relationships to each other like when they've known each other for a long time? But there's something about like when a woman makes a movie about men that is like slightly more concise almost. It's like Catherine Bigelow does this in
I was going to say Hurt Locker.
In the Hurt Locker, yeah, where it's just like this thing of like spending your whole life watching men interact, or like having to watch men, having to like take in what men are like, for like, just because that's the culture you consume, because those are the people you have to listen to, like all of that is like, she's so smart about how these two guys like relate to each other in a way that feels very feminine.
Well, that's also like, as I was sort of saying at the beginning, Cassavetes movies are usually about women having mental breakdowns and or men getting incredibly drunk, right? And being self-destructive, engaging in self-destructive behaviors. And I think his male-driven movies and his male relationships in his movies are about male intimacy, but it says something about him that he kind of only knows how to get there if the guys are so drunk that their filter is removed. And what's interesting about this movie is this is two guys who kind of can't say the right thing to each other. They are still closed off, but as an audience observing them, it speaks volumes, right?
Yeah, but you see that there's like 30 years there. Like you like in the first scene where like Mikey comes and Nicky like starts sobbing into him. Like that is a very intimate scene, and they aren't even like wasted.
Right, and
it's just like a very tender moment.
To Elaine May's credit, I don't think Cassavetes was very capable or skilled at doing that. I don't think he was capable of showing two men not saying much but saying everything and depicting intimacy. He needed to have guys falling apart, like literally collapsing on each other in the street, screaming at 4 o'clock in the morning. Yes.
I should watch some more. It's been a while since I did rewatch Husbands recently. It was on Criterion, and I rewatched Gloria for some reason, which is just a great time. Like, Gloria is kind of like the one where you're like, oh, he like made a half commercial movie and fuck, he's incredible at it. Like,
right. But it's also that thing I love of just like a filmmaker who is so fundamentally themselves that they kind of can't make a normal movie, and it's halfway in between their thing and what. I love it. Oh, I love it. I love it. Him.
Right.
I
haven't seen like Killing of a Chinese Bookie or Opening Night, like or Woman Under Influence, since I was in college, like a long time.
Oh my god, you should rewatch Women Under the Influence. It's so incredible. Jenna Rollins is just like, she's incredible. Also crazy that they were married for so. It seems like Cassavetes would not be the kind of person who can like stay married for decades.
I know,
and yet there he was.
Crazy that she's still alive. She's fucking kicking around. She's like 90 years old.
She rolls. She's probably my favorite actress of all time. I mean, she's like top 5 period for me.
Are you Notebook Hive, Griffin?
I am. I was honestly very resistant to it for a while because I was such a fucking snotty little Cassavetes snob kid that I was like, why is Cassavetes' son making these rom-coms, and why is that only the best rom-drams, and why is that the best part that she can get? And then I came around to it. It's fucking good.
That movie's good.
That
I
movie's
haven't
really
seen
good.
it in a while.
And she's really great in
she's
it.
really great.
She's really good in it.
It is kind of unique, the dynamic of putting these two guys who have done so much stuff together, and especially Cassavetes with his stock company of Falk and Gazera and Rollins and everyone had sort of created this entirely different tempo for screen acting, and not many other people were running with that. So to sort of like adopt that into the cloth of your film, to take a movie that is very tightly written, that could have been a stage play, that almost was a stage play, and let two guys sort of like control the temperature in between, action and cut is just an interesting. There aren't very many movies like this.
No.
And the only thing, right, we should, as we've sort of discussed, Griffin, like, it's absolutely true that the industry had no interest in helping Elaine May make good movies. No. But it is also it's also true, as you're saying, like, she herself was not sure she wanted to do it a lot of the time. Like, she would struggle with, like, do I want, and of course part of it is like, do I want to run the gauntlet again of all the bullshit that will await me, right? But like, you said when you saw her talking about Ishtar, like, she was kind of like, look, I could have done what you're saying. Like, I could have done the Woody Allen thing where I do a light comedy every other year, basically.
Right.
And I didn't want to do that.
And she also said, I could have made a lot of movies after Ishtar. Like, it certainly knocked me back on my heels, but I've gotten offers and I could have sold something, and I just didn't care enough to go through this bullshit again. I mean, that was very much her attitude of just like, it was just so miserable. I didn't care enough.
Well, did you guys hear that thing maybe a couple years ago where Dakota Johnson was allegedly doing an Elaine May movie?
Crackpot.
Yes.
Which would be so good. I feel like Dakota Johnson is like a perfect person for Elaine May, who is like,
we live in
like,
hope.
We live.
I want it so bad. Because I think she's like funny in that way that's like underrated, where it's like Elaine May could really like do it up for her.
Dakota Johnson is the best.
I said this in our
She's
Harvard Kid episode, but Ellen, that's not true, is kind of like a perfect Elaine May scene.
Oh my God.
Ellen, that's not what happened.
Also, her recently revealing that she was lying about loving limes in her Architectural Digest thing, like, that is so funny.
She's got some chaotic energy.
Yeah. That was what to say. That was like a Joker moment. I was like, wait, Dakota, wait
What's going
a second.
on
You're
here?
not aware of what you're doing here now? But back to Mikey and Nicky. The only other thing I'll say about Elaine May's chaotic filmmaking nature is that she did shoot 1.5 million feet of film.
Yes.
Which is, I mean, that's crazy.
Normal 2-hour movies are 11,000 feet. So
yes,
that's so much.
Yes, this was 1,400,000, which is, I think, 3 times more than Gone with the Wind, and Gone with the Wind is a day long, right? I mean, the final cut of that movie is 1 day, I think.
It's a long movie.
It's 4 hours.
240 minutes.
It is
4 hours.
It's 4 hours long. Mikey and Nicky is 140, and she shot 3 times more than Gone with the Wind.
Yeah, and now I know that like Judd Apatow shoots like 1 million feet of film. It's like there are people who take her approach now, where it's just keep it rolling. We're gonna do everything we can think of, like. But it is just still. It must have been astonishing for her to be like, yeah, my little 2-hander gangster movie where like the 4th lead probably has 1 scene. Yeah, I shot 1.5 million feet of film. I'm gonna need a year to cut it. like I'll talk to you guys later. Like, I mean, I can only imagine how mind-blowing that how that all went over.
But so much of it was, I think, her knowing how Cassavetes and Falk like to work at this point.
Their whole thing.
In a way that predated Apatow by decades, she wanted to have multiple cameras cross-shooting at the same time so that if there was a beautiful discovered moment, she had multiple angles of it. She had editing options. She didn't have to recreate it. She also would just not call cut. She would just let the camera keep rolling even when the scenes were done to see if anything happened. And there's the famous story that
we have to relate the famous story.
Love this.
It's the best story of all time.
It's one of the scenes where they're out in the street and both guys walk off camera and the camera keeps running for 3 minutes and the first AD yells out cut and she comes out screaming and says, "What are you doing? I'm the director. You don't get to call cut." He said the guys walked out and she went, "But what if they come back?"
I learned some crazy like preamble to that story, which is that they were like supposed to shoot that scene on a Friday. They spent the whole day rigging lights on lighting poles so that they could like shoot at night on this like long strip of street. And then she arrives on set at night and she's like, "No, I want them to walk the other way. The lights are set up this way." And so they're like, "Just have them walk that way." And she's like, "No." And so they have to shoot it the next day, set up all the lights. And on the night before, she had been like, there's like a cobblestone part of the street. And she's like, "Well, that has to get paved." She wouldn't let them have like a cobblestone street. And then that same night after they had like gone through hell getting it all set up, she was like, what if they come back? Just like a crazy 24 hours.
It's just another thing about her is that she was incredibly particular. And a lot of times what she was particular about was creating the circumstances for something she didn't know she wanted.
Yeah. I think also she like just liked watching Peter Falk and John Cassavetes work together. She would just like sit there. And even if the camera like ran out of film, she would say, don't yell cut. Just let them keep going. I want to see where this goes. I want to see you guys end the scene. And like they would have to be like, "Elaine, what are we doing here?" Like the camera's definitely out of film at this point. Like,
which I can't blame her. I mean, Apatow says a lot that like he loved Cassavetes movies and would watch them and go, "Can you make a movie like this that just has more jokes in it? Like, can you make a movie like this?"
His whole idea for the King of Staten Island. And as you can tell, it totally worked.
But even back to 40-Year-Old Virgin, I mean, he even says like that was, I mean, at that point he was more concerned with trying to fit into the expectations of a commercial comedy, but he's always said like, these movies are just kind of actors behaving. You get people who like each other off camera as well, are natural. You set up a bunch of cameras, you give them a lot of time, and you don't make it very plot or conflict heavy. You just kind of create a central set of circumstances and let scenes flow. And every movie he's made since then has gone further and further, it feels like, in the direction of, can I go full Cassavetes? But in a way, what he's doing is closer to this movie than it is to Cassavetes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this feels like the midpoint between the two.
Yeah. I think like Funny People and This Is 40 definitely have those vibes of just being like, we're just putting some people in some places and seeing how it happens.
This Is 40, especially where there's no plot, and then at the end it's kind of like, dad's in the hospital, like where it just feels like they suddenly were like, oh fuck, something should like happen. We got to do Apatow Griffin. I haven't seen that movie since theaters, and I always think about it.
I haven't either, but I think about it with a lot of confusion.
Yeah, but you know, maybe it's incredible, or maybe it's the worst.
I mean, we both stand Funny People, and Funny People for me is the one where he got the balance totally right in terms of what he's trying to do. And King of Staten Island, I watch, and I'm like, this either needs to be a lot more dramatic or have 40% more jokes.
Olivia, what do you think of those movies?
I mean, I like Judd Apatow. I was also like a teenager when Judd Apatow was really like cranking him out. Like I was in middle school, I think, when Knocked Up came out and was like sweeping the nation. So I think I was like really primed to like love Judd Apatow movies, and I've kind of just like seen all of them. I haven't seen King of Staten Island though, because I'm kind of averse to watching a lot of Pete Davidson at once.
I mean, it really feels like this, right? I just kept thinking,
because it's a lot of people
this,
just hanging out and talking shit, and it doesn't have anything to do with anything. And then occasionally his Hollywood instincts kick in and he's like, okay, but anyway, here's what's up with the story. And it feels a little jarring anytime he does that.
Yeah, but it also doesn't have the Apatow line-orama thing. Like, King of Staten Island feels like the first one where he's not pointedly trying to make sure there are jokes and scenes. The thing that also I think differentiates this from the Cassavetes movies, which is closer to the model that Apatow tried to follow, is that like the movie does kind of have a plot. It has a motor behind it. You know, it's not just a set of circumstances. It's like, here's this guy, he's worried he's going to die tonight.
Right.
He calls up his friend to help him out. And meanwhile, he's being hunted. You know, there's a clock on this movie.
But that's it.
Yes.
That's the entire plot.
And I think, like, that is kind of the theatrical thing where it's less like he, like, has a goal, which I feel like is a very cinematic thing. And, like, a very theatrical thing is to, like, have a question is, like, is he gonna die? And it's, like, that is gonna be answered by the time the curtain falls. Like, it, like, I don't know if you guys have ever read or seen Night Mother. Do you know that play? Yeah. Where it's just like at the beginning of Act 1, the daughter comes out and she's like, I'm going to kill myself. And the whole play is her mother being like, don't kill yourself. And then at the end of the play, spoiler, she does. And it's just like the whole time you're like, is she going to do it? And the whole time you're watching this movie, you're like, is Ned Beatty going to get him? Is Peter Falk going to step in and like cut it off? Because you kind of know where it's going, but you want it to like maybe end differently.
But the movie is also, over the course of this, 100 minutes, trying to parse what their relationship is. Getting these little drips and drabs that come out in conversations where you start to be able to build a map in your mind of who these guys are exactly and who they are to each other. Because it just starts so abruptly.
Yeah, and I also think this movie makes a really smart choice of having them at, like, a very interesting point in their friendship where they have, like, kind of fallen off, but he is still... They are still like each other's oldest friends, but Mikey is like, you don't answer my phone calls anymore. Like, you're only calling me because you're in trouble. Like, it's that kind of like low point in their friendship that this movie catches them at.
I wouldn't be friends with Nicky. To
God, he seems like a bad friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nicky's a real shithead.
I kind of love any movie where you don't know if a character is telling the truth at any point or not.
Oh,
you know?
I just think like a lesser movie would have you like kind of know what's going on the whole time. And the fact that like in that first like time when Mikey is like on the phone or like Ned Beatty is like, go to the bar, do whatever. And then you cut to them in the diner and Peter Falk is on the phone and you can't tell if he was with Ned Beatty or not because he's like, there's no flights from TWA. So you're like, oh, he was just talking maybe to the airport, but like maybe to Ned Beatty. And like by the time you figure it out, like, I don't know, it's really, I mean, it's just such a smart screenplay. It's just so good.
David, you said like this is one of the most weirdly disorienting movies ever made. And all of that factors into it, where you just kind of in every scene can't figure out what you're supposed to know or not, which I also think is kind of replicating the energy of these two guys sitting across from each other, not knowing whether or not they can trust each other.
Also, but it's also like they'll go to a new location, a restaurant, a bus, a bar, right? And you're like, okay, they're gonna sit here, and they're like, by the end of the scene, they've like physically threatened someone. They're like, I'm gonna kill you, you know. They're like grabbing people and like pushing them across the table, like, and sometimes Peter Falk's doing it. The supposed, you know, you're sort of like, oh well, this guy's the moderate one, you know, like in every scene, and then occasionally he's the one who's just
like when he jumps over the counter for the cream, just like kind of out of nowhere, like
he conveys after a long exchange what he wants and gets the guy on board with giving him 15 cups of cream and charging him for 15 coffees. The guy's about to do it, and Fox like, all right, I gotta go nuclear.
But it's also like
this is the moment.
If you look, there are the two women in the background of the shot who are like at the counter, and they are have that thing where they're kind of like uncomfortably laughing.
Right.
It's kind of like, have you guys ever been to a Waffle House?
Yeah.
I certainly have.
It's kind of like when something is happening in a Waffle House and you're like, this actually isn't my business. Like,
right, but they're not like threatened and they're not shocked. They're
No.
kind of just going like, "Oh, this is weird."
Yeah,
and
it's like late at night. You're at a diner. You're like, any freak could walk in right now. Like,
and part of me felt like I wonder if these two background actors, this is the only take where he did this. That they're reacting that way because it almost looks like they're looking
They're
off
like, this
camera.
isn't in the movie, right?
Right,
This
right.
one
They're
won't
giving
be.
these looks like that. But it
Like,
works.
what's the story? I was at a coffee shop. It was crazy. And Columbo came in and got the guy to agree to sell him 15 cups of cream and then beat the shit out of him.
Right. He had agreed to the terms that he would pay for 15 cups of coffee in exchange for just the cream. And then he strangled the guy and said he would kill him in 6 seconds unless he got the cream.
was his plan to carry like 15 cups of cream, or do you guys think that there was some like divvying situation?
You can't actually depict Peter Falk.
I think maybe Peter Falk like figured that out and was like, I actually have to get violent because there's no way I can carry that much cream in a dignified manner.
It's just such a bizarre scene. I mean, what? The opening of the movie is like Cassavetes looking at the newspaper, right? And calling Mikey in
and
a
he
panic.
sees that his like bookie partner has been killed.
But it's just such an effective opening because it's like, here's the sad sack guy. He looks like shit. He wakes up, right? He rolls out of bed. It's the middle of the night, you know? He looks at the newspaper, and then you just see it on his face. Like, oh, this guy thinks he's a dead man.
Right.
And he's so sweaty. He has an ulcer,
So
too.
sweaty.
That's like a really, that's like one of those things where it's just like, kind of not relevant to the situation, but it's like fun to remember from time to time.
Yeah.
It's like, oh right, he also has an ulcer.
He looks like he hasn't slept in years. He looks
Yeah.
like he hasn't slept since like the mid 60s.
Yes. But then he calls up Mikey, and like one of the first things he tells him is that he's at a payphone. Right? Like one of the first things he does is lie to his friend on the phone.
True.
And then, of course, when Mikey shows up, he starts throwing shit out his window to signal that that's where he is.
I love that.
Yeah. What does Mikey say? Like, I got your brick. I'm trying to remember how he puts it. Like, instead of I got your message. Yeah.
But then, right, when Mikey goes upstairs, Falk up like Cassavetes doesn't want to let him in. Is convinced he's got cops with him. Like, won't open the door more than a sliver. Like, there's just such an insane amount of paranoia from the beginning, and also just dishonesty between the two of them.
But then Peter Falk like gives him the medicine because he's like, I've known you for 30 years. You call me in the middle of the night. I'm gonna bring what is essentially Tums, I guess, for his ulcer. But I think that is the moment where you're like, that's like one of those lines where you're like, oh yeah, these guys have like been around the block. These guys have like a deep relationship where he knows that like this guy's ulcer is probably acting up right now, or like this guy's got a tummy ache.
He also feeds him the pills as if he's a toddler.
Yes. Because he thinks it's poison.
Right, open up. You know, he's going like, here comes the choo-choo train with painkillers.
He is. Yes. I mean, because Nicky is essentially like, if I walk on the street, everyone wants to kill me. Right. If you're knocking on the door, it's because you have a gun and you're going to murder me. If you're giving me food, it's because you poisoned it. Like, that's just his approach to every single thing that's happening to him.
And the great thing about this movie is that he's kind of right. Like, he ends up being right the whole time.
He's marked for death. It's true.
He's like, he shouldn't have maybe let Mikey into the room.
But I mean, like, it doesn't explain how he like goes after at Walsh. He's like, you're in on this. There's that great line when he's like trying to kill at Walsh, and Mikey's just like, Nicky, this guy's enormous.
Yeah.
Like, where it's like, come on, man. Like, not everyone is like involved in the international conspiracy to make you exit the front of the bus because that's the only place they can shoot you. Like, you know, but that's whatever. That's how it's built up for him at this point.
That, you know, there's the the Roger Ebert, like the M. Emmett Walsh rule, that like no movie with M. Emmett Walsh in it can be entirely bad. By virtue of having M. Emmett Walsh in it for even one scene, the movie has at least one redeeming quality. And I always, like, when I would read that, would go like, I mean, I love M. Emmett Walsh, but that's a weird guy to make that rule for. But then anytime he shows up in a movie, I'm like, no, it does feel right.
The best. He's the best.
There is just an immediate jolt anytime he shows up for one scene.
100%. With the last example being Knives Out.
Yeah.
He's still going.
Yeah.
And when he was in Knives Out for one scene, I was like, oh, look, it's M. Emmett Walsh. Oh, this is a good scene. I like what he's doing here. And now, is that true for the Scorpion King 4, The Quest for Power?
I was
he is
looking
also
through
in?
his career to see if there's something that disproves the rule. And that's the only one that has potential, I think, to ruin it. I haven't seen it.
I haven't either.
Wow, this is like a Schrodinger's M. Emmett Walsh at the moment.
Right.
Like, we just don't know. It could go either way.
Might be great.
Bring, 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 bring. Oh no. Okay, David, Olivia, Ben, just hold it. Okay, I'm gonna try to get this over with as quickly as possible. It's another Zoom bomb. Let me pick this up. Click.
And one more thing.
Oh, and one more thing. You ended the last call by saying no more things, Ghost of Columbo.
Well, I forgot
Forgot what?
that I had one more thing.
Okay, fine. What's the one more thing?
You ever gotten questionable health tips?
Yeah, I've got questionable health tips. I feel like your thing is usually asking like a leading question that will get someone to admit their guilt, right? Like asking a question that reveals that you actually were paying attention to the small details. But this just feels like a very open question. Has anyone ever given you bad advice? Yes, many times. I'm bad at taking care of myself. I surround myself with people who are constantly feeling the need to give me unasked for advice because people constantly fear that I'm on death's door just from seeing me. And sure, some of that advice is questionable.
Like, what if I told you that you should switch to an all-lemon diet?
Yeah, I'd say that's bad advice. That's questionable health advice, Columbo. I'm not sure if that's actually good advice, you know? That's why I tend to turn to Noom for advice, because Noom knows that changing your health is not about rules, but about changing your mindset, you know? Enter psychology, as Metallica would say if they rewrote Enter Sandman to be about psychology. Look, if you want to get healthy and stay healthy, you need to know more about how you make decisions. Noom gives you the knowledge, tools, and confidence to make strategic choices that turn to long-term habits. And those long-term habits turn into a healthier, happier you. It's based in science and built by psychologists, much like the psychologist mentioned in the hypothetical Metallica rewrite song I just talked about. Noom doesn't give you rules, but instead teaches you how to think so you can accomplish your personal health goals, stick with them long term, and get healthy for good. Okay? I mean, look, here's some things that Noom can help you with, okay? Having more energy, enjoying exercise again. I feel like that's a big one for a lot of us. You get off the horse, right? This last year, you're afraid to go to a gym. You're not getting out and about as much. Fitting better in clothes, feeling good about your choices, reducing stress, or what about feeling more confident and comfortable in a crowd or a social situation? A thing I feel thoroughly unequipped to deal with again. Just seems terrifying now. You know? I mean, and there's an ease and convenience with the app and the program at Noom. You know, it's 10 minutes a day. The tone of the program is loose. You know, logging food on this app is easy. And it's nice to kind of see the chart and be able to note your progress. And there's a very forgiving, empathetic nature to the Noom program. You get a personalized coach. They help you understand yourself and your goals with a lot of flexibility so you don't have to commit to a rigorous plan. You know, and Noom's cognitive behavioral approach means you're not just improving your health, you're gaining the knowledge and habits you need to stay healthy. Now, Noom is designed by psychologists, but there's no scientific jargon or complicated stuff to remember because Noom makes learning easy. And over 80% of Noomers finish the program, and over 60% have stuck with their goals for at least 1 year. Okay? There's a science to getting healthier, and it's called Noom. So this is what I want you to do. I want you to sign up for your trial today at Noom, NOOM.com/check. Okay? Learn how to get healthy with Noom. That's Noom, NOOM.com/check. Noom.com/check. I guess I should thank you, Columbo. I mean, that ended up, it didn't make me admit my guilt, but it made me admit, I guess, some of my neuroses and what I've been doing to sort of work on them. So thank you, Columbo.
You're welcome, and no more things.
Great, and now he hung up again. Well, at least, thank God, no more things. Comedy rule of twos. I think he's done now. Let's get back to the show.
Okay, wait, so what happens next? They go to the restaurant next?
Yeah,
Where do
they go
what
to the
happens
restaurant.
next? Yeah.
They drink milk and beer and soda. They have a lot
Yes.
of beverages. It's a big beverage night for them.
There's something about the way that guys in the 70s talk about beer.
It makes it seem like beer was maybe better, or like
Yeah, I think beer was inarguably worse. Like, I think beer has improved.
beer has definitely improved, but like maybe it's because it was worse and it was just more like water that you could just really just like.
I don't know, but there's
I don't know.
there's something holy about the way guys in 70s movies and TV show casually talk about, like, all I'm looking for is a cold glass of beer.
Right. It sounds so refreshing.
It's not like, oh, let's go get drinks, you know?
No, they want beer.
Right. I want a beer.
I don't know. There was less to do back then. A beer was probably one of the top 5 most exciting things you could do that day, without question.
I think also in those days you weren't expected to function like you could just be drunk.
That is true.
Yes.
Get away with it.
Yes. People would just go to lunch and get blasted.
Yeah.
And everyone was kind of fat.
Everyone was kind of fat.
Everyone was just kind of chubbier, you know, like everyone just
Yeah.
kind of ate badly and like, you know,
Well, I think more specifically, no one was fit.
no one was
Right.
in shape. No one on earth was
Right.
in shape.
Right.
Like when you see Sean Connery as James Bond or whatever, you're like, this guy looks like me practically. I mean,
I know.
obviously he's a good looking
And-
guy, but like he's just got a regular ass body.
It is wild when you read like newspaper stories about him getting cast as Bond, and they're like, ugh, rather than casting an actor, they cast some bodybuilder, Sean Connery.
Because he like has shoulders.
Like he was the most ripped guy on the planet.
That same thing kind of extends to like the women of the 70s,
Mhm.
where it's like they all look like normal people. Like every woman in this movie, like in the face and the body and the dress, like it's like the Carol Grace role would be like
Ugh.
Margot Robbie today. And I'd be like, what? Like that's not really computing for me. But when it's just like a normal woman, I'm like, oh, yes, of course.
She's so fucking good in this. I didn't realize that she was
incredible.
married to Walter Matthau.
Yeah.
She's basically only in one other movie.
Yeah.
Like ever. Right? Yeah. Like, yeah. And she was married to Walter Matthau for like 40 years.
She has 4 credits total. This is her last. She was in an episode of Alfred Hitchcock Presents. She was in
Yeah.
Gangster Story, which is the only movie Matthau ever directed. And she's in one other movie uncredited.
Did she do theater? Because it just seems like crazy
must
that you
have,
could
right?
just like pop out and do this incredible performance. Just kind of like,
They had one kid, and the only line on Wikipedia, but I do like this line, and I wish this line was on my Wikipedia.
Mm-hmm.
She had a wide social circle and was known for her wit and good company.
that's literally that's all you want to be remembered
That's all
for.
you want to be remembered for.
She sounds like a cool motherfucker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She wrote a novella and a memoir. She did do a lot of Broadway. She did a lot of
Yeah.
Broadway.
Okay, that makes sense.
There you go.
Yeah.
Sure. That makes sense. But she's great in this movie. Jesus. Ben, I feel like you haven't weighed in about Mikey and Nicky. I just feel like this is such a Ben movie. I want to know if it took you by surprise.
You were saying pre-Mike that it kind of stressed you out.
It did. I mean, not in a bad way.
Yeah.
These are characters that comfort me, kind of, in a fucked up way.
I like that take.
Anger expressed, where it's not like, it's just like, it reminds me of the people I saw growing up and people who were around me who would just like yell and scream like it was sport.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like they're running around the block, essentially. That's their version of it. It's just yelling and screaming.
Yeah. Yeah. It's And it's also like the best time in New York too. Like I love seeing New York in these days, the old cars. But it's also, it reminds me of all my really bad friends that I had over the years that I don't talk to anymore. So it's like, it kind of hit me in a personal way too, where it was like, oh, that really reminds me of Joey Beatles. Like, I haven't talked to that guy in a while. I wonder what's going on with him. Is he on parole? Like, is he out of jail? So
how's Joey Beatles dealing with the pandemic? Right.
I don't know. I haven't kept up with any of these people.
I mean, it's definitely it's a movie about the type of guy that is incredibly at peace with being trash, Yeah. Like these guys are very chill and comfortable being very uncomfortable and wound up.
Well, I don't think they have a choice.
Yeah. But they create chaos.
But if that's just the environment that you were reared in, what you're used to and how you express yourself, it's just like, that's how things come out. It's just, it's also so self-destructive. And I don't think, they're in control of it, unfortunately.
Right. Often not in control. I mean, Cassavetes is not a character who's remotely in control of anything in this movie. Whereas Falk.
Hey, but you know what? I would have been in the mob. If I had a choice, would you guys have been in the mob?
No.
No.
It seemed dangerous.
Do you know why?
Wear a suit, hang out all night, smoke cigarettes. If something fell off a truck, like that stuff seems fun.
I don't think they would have let me into the mob. I think I would have had to be like someone's girlfriend, and I think I would have been very like Kay from The Godfather, which is very like, what's going on here? Like, you're doing what?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't want to be in the mob, and they would never let me in. I was about to say the same thing as Olivia. Yeah,
David,
I'm like I'm what's his pants in The Sopranos. I'm the restaurant owner. I like to be friends with everybody. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want anyone to be mad at me. Fuck, what's his name now? How am I forgetting his name?
Is it Artie?
Artie Bucco. Yes, exactly.
What you're saying, David, is ultimately you want to have a wide social circle and be known for your wit and good company.
Right. But then if Tony is like, hey, go on this cruise, like I got you some tickets, I would start to freak out. I'd be like, oh, I don't know if I can do that, Tony. Like I would have to acknowledge the elephant in the room all of a sudden. And it would be awkward.
Yeah. I think I would like be that level of friends where you like chat. Like I'd be that with Meadow Soprano and know that her dad is Tony and be like, oh my God, Meadow, what's going on? Like, how are you? And like hope that she gives me like some
gossip.
Yeah, obviously. David, this is something you and I share, which is that we both just want to hear gossip all the time.
One of the cruelest droughts of COVID is the gossip.
It is
drought.
So
just nothing.
That I haven't gotten to like hear about the relationship troubles of a tertiary friend in a year.
Right, exactly. My favorite thing is that I'm at a bar, I overhear someone else talking, right, like at the party, and I'm just like, catch me up on this. What is this? Tell me all about it.
How much would you pay to be like at a bar listening to the couple next to you having a fight right now?
Oh my God.
But you know what's another one I miss, which is connected to this, is you go out with like a couple of friends, right? Not a large group, or in a larger group, you splinter off into a smaller group. And like you're between two people who know each other very intimately. And so because you're in the physical space, but they want to talk about something personal that happened, they just let you hear everything. When someone's like, I'm sorry, I'm sure this is boring you. You're like, no, it's fine. And then they start describing the most intimate details of their life. And it's just like, they would never tell me this independently. But just because we're in the same corner.
You're like smushed into the corner of the booth and you're like, I'm not getting out.
Right. And you're like, and they're like, fine, then I guess you just hear everything. Then I don't have any secrets.
I miss it too. But Mikey and Nicky level, no. I think if Nicky called me, I would be like, I'm sorry, Nicky. I just got in bed. I don't think I can come hang out tonight. Like, I'm definitely not gonna run to his apartment and get bricks thrown at me. And and then
this is also a movie that's like, oh, like Because if I were Mikey and it were 2021 and I had a cell phone and I saw Nicky call me at midnight, I'd be like, I'm asleep. I can't do this. But on like the landline, you can't screen the call on the landline.
It's true.
See, I feel like even though they're your bad friends, you gotta help.
Well, that's the thing with the bad friend, though, is yes, that's true. And you want to, but don't you feel like, Ben, sometimes with the bad friend, there is some moment where you're like, you know what? I feel like this always turns out the same way. And I should probably, I love you, but I don't think I can help. Right. Like you sometimes you got to draw some kind of boundary. But yes, I know what you mean. There's sometimes the bad friend.
I mean, I should have drawn boundaries. I wouldn't have gotten arrested or gotten into a car accident in my life, Like,
yeah.
But I feel like that's just sometimes those are the relationships you have. And I don't know. It's also because you grew up and you're a kid, like since you've known each other since you were a kid.
You've known someone forever.
I think that's like a huge part of it, because they keep like hammering it home in the movie. They're like, you knew my brother who died, like you knew my parents, like blah, blah, blah. And like if my like oldest friend is still a good friend of mine, and if she called me at midnight, I'd be like, what's going on? Like, are you good?
Yeah, I think that's a huge turning point in the movie, because I certainly I watch it under the assumption like, oh, these are two guys who know each other from like the trade. They know each other from the same bad business, right? And then when you realize like, no, they've known each other since they were children. Like they've grieved people together. It predates all of that. That's when you sort of understand the nature of their relationship, but then also why it's like it's twice as cutting that Mikey is willing to sell him out, but it also makes twice as much sense because it's like this guy has been something of a burden on him for decades, I mean, he's just been putting up with this forever.
Absolutely. And of course we should mention that on the side, Ned Beatty has been contracted to kill Nicky and is treating it like an annoying like plumbing job.
It's so funny that like he's like, oh God, I gotta do this thing. Like he's like, if I bring in a driver, I'm not gonna make as much money off of it. Like it's fully just like, I think that's such a funny quirk in the writing. That's like, no. He's not like some stealth killer. He's just like a dude who has a job.
He has the energy of an Uber driver, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And he basically breaks even on the job. Like he's not right. He's not like, you're going to give me $25,000 in non-sequential bills. He's just like, fuck, I guess it's just about worth it for me to commit the act of murder.
Right.
He also like at one point says like when they're in the office of, let me say, Sanford Meisner, which is crazy.
Hell yeah.
He's like, oh, I know, I need a hit or something. He says something like that, which is like, is he bad at his job too? Is he kind of like a clunky hitman who's like, this is the guy they put on Nicky because they like don't care. They're like, just at some point, make sure he's dead. Oh.
Right, because Nicky is eminently killable. Like Nicky is definitely not the cat and mouse type.
You don't need Jason Bourne to get Nicky. He'll just like any of us could do it if we were like okay with taking a life. It would be easy.
It's that great scene at the end of the movie when Fox in the car with him and he's like doing what you said, David, like talking about like, I mean, I had to pay my way out here, the hotel room. I was barely gonna make money. Now I'm gonna lose money on this.
Yes.
And then Fox says, like, this shouldn't have been a hard job. And he goes, like, I know, and that's why this is going to really ruin my reputation.
Right. Nicky almost outfoxed me. Nicky!
Right.
And he only outfoxed me.
I would like to watch.
He's so chaotic that you can't predict his movements anymore. He's like a poker player who doesn't know the rules, right? Like, he's like, let's just go to a graveyard now. Sorry, Olivia, what were you saying?
No, I was just going to say, I would watch the movie that is like Ned Beatty's just like normal job career
day-to-day,
as a hitman who's just like, I gotta sit in this car.
Well, he also like he has that Uber driver energy where it's just like, you're making me really depressed now. You won't stop talking about how much it is fucking up your day that you have picked me up. You know,
it's like that you're the inconvenience here. It's like he had other things to do,
right?
And, like you made him make a second stop.
There was a thing on the Blu-ray where they said that he requested that his pants be too short on his costume. To show that he was not glamorous. I mean, it is this thing. I know you were saying, like, I mean, 72 is like Godfather and this sort of modern wave of mob movies being redefined and everything. But I still think there are so few movies about the crime world where people are this unglamorous.
This is what I'm trying to say. When Goodfellas comes out 20 years after The Godfather, it's like, okay, finally a movie about how the mob really is. It's a bunch of assholes who commit murder for no good reason. This is not this burnished American legend. It's really just kind of like crooks and jerks and ego and, like it's all bullshit. Like that's what's so good about the Goodfellas. And yet at the same time you watch Goodfellas and you're like, I mean, it looks like a pretty good time being a mobster, right? Like that's sort of the Scorsese magic.
Yeah.
That's this movie is like 15 years earlier, and like you're saying, it's like dealing with the scum on top of the scum that is like the American crime world, and it feels like completely revolutionary.
But that's your job, like. You clock in and you get to be a fucking asshole and run around mouth off.
Ben, I just want to say something. I don't think you clock into the mafia. That's the only thing I want to correct you on. I think
David, no, you gotta clock in or else the union gets on your ass.
Yeah, David. I mean, how else are they going to track billable hours?
You can't be no call, no show to the mob.
The mob actually has really good overtime pay.
It just seems exciting.
Yeah, it does.
Doesn't it seem exciting? Yeah.
No, but I mean, I remember reading some interview with Bill Hader where he was talking about like developing Barry and how HBO just so badly wanted him to do a show that they were like, whatever you want to do, anything you want to do, you can create, direct it, star in it, whatever it is, we just want to be in business with you. And they like sent Alec Berg to him to help him develop it. And he was like, do you have any ideas? And Hader was like, I want to do a show about a hitman. And Berg was like, that's stupid. Hitman stuff sucks. It's always so boring.
When it was announced, I was like, oh, fuck off. He's doing a Hitman?
Right.
No, fuck that. I'm not interested
sunglasses and like skinny ties and shit.
Right.
And Hader's whole approach was just like, but like in real life, Hitmen can't actually be glamorous, right? Like it's probably just like, they're just completely broken, unsexy people who are just doing kind of like grunt work. And it feels like there's very few things that treat crime that way, this being another one of them, where it's just like these guys, it's just like it's fucking worn them down,
Randomly, Gross Point Blank is kind of like
Absolutely.
That, where
Great
John
movie.
Cusack is just kind of like, he's just a guy and his job happens to be that he's an assassin, and it's like he has to go back home.
I think Gross Point Blank has like the internal life of it down, but Cusack is still just a little bit too innately cool.
Too hot.
I don't say that as a strike against the movie. I think the movie rules, but it's like Cusack makes it feel like a movie because he's just too fucking.
He's just
hot
like a
and cool.
movie star. He's
right.
like it's impossible to like not be like that's a hot person.
Right. Peter Falk is like a hairy laundry bag with a glass eye,
He sure is. And I love him. I want to shout out Sanford Meisner, who Olivia briefly shouted out, who plays the mob boss, who is pretty fantastic in that one scene, who is in, I believe, like 3 movies total. Obviously one of the most famous acting teachers alive, right?
What did he do?
Oh, the other movies?
No, what is you're saying famous teacher?
Acting teacher.
He did. There's literally, it's called the Meisner Technique, and it's like one of like the formative schools of acting.
Yeah.
Griffin, have you ever done Meisner exercises?
Yeah, are you a Meisner?
I'm not a Meisner person. I've done the exercises. I assume you have as well, Olivia.
Yeah, I had to do them in high school because my teacher was a student of Uta Hagen, so they got like passed down. But I don't think it works on teenagers. I don't think they have like the capacity to like understand the repetition or like what it's supposed to teach you.
I did them when I was young and I found them kind of tedious.
Right? It's just kind of like repeating yourself.
You just have to keep doing the scene over and over again. Is that what it is?
No, it's not even that. So it's like, Ben, just like say anything to me right now.
I think it would be cool to work for the mob.
I think it would be cool to work for the mob.
I think it would be cool to work for the mob.
I think it would be cool to work for the mob.
You do that for 2 hours straight.
You do it for so long
God.
until it just like doesn't even sound like words in your
Right,
brain
sure.
anymore.
And you're like, and that's when the acting really begins. That's when the truth comes out.
my
When the
God.
words stop meaning anything.
I have a Sanford Meisner story. Can I tell it briefly? It has nothing to do with anything really, but I do
Please.
have one. So when my grandmother turned 80 years old in the year 2002, my grandmother was an English professor who lived in Utica, New York. She decided she wanted to go to the Caribbean for her 80th birthday. And we were simply just going to have to go to the Caribbean with her on like Christmas of 2002. So we were like, okay. She rented a big house that the whole family was going to stay in. We arrive there, and there's this fucking crazy old man who runs the house, who lives there. He looks like Dr. Livingston from the jungle. He's got like a big long white beard and a cane, and he's got like a white hat. You know what I mean? He's like just sort of like a weird guy who lives in the Caribbean. And his name is James Carville, but he's not that James Carville.
Wow.
And he's like, where are you from? And she's like, I'm from Utica, New York. He's like, oh, me too. Which is absurd on the face of it already. No one is from Utica, New York. But so then people are doing that. And we're like, so what's your deal? Why do you, this random white guy, live in Beckway in the Grenadines, like in this house? And he's like, well, I was the longtime companion of Sanford Meisner, who used to live here with me until he died. And now I just, maintain the home. Because he died like 10 years ago, and I just live here. He's still alive. I just Googled him. The house was full of pictures of Sandy Meisner, and I stayed in his house for a week one time. That's it.
Wow.
That's the story.
That's a good story.
Tell the story again, David.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna repeat it back to you. Actually,
I just Googled him. He's 90 years old. He's still fucking kicking. James Carville. Lives in Beckway.
His big thing
That's
too.
it.
I mean, I feel like Cassavetes in particular was really trying to evolve a lot of the Meisner stuff, but it was like he'd give you a line of dialogue was another exercise, and he'd give one line to each actor on stage, and you didn't say it until something compelled you to say the line. Like he was all about like trying to shake
Right.
acting out of feeling like people saying cues. And
wouldn't it be like someone would touch you and that's when you say the line, right?
Well,
Like
it would be
something
like
that.
that might happen. If that happens and that inspires you to say the line, then you do it, But it was also like, I'll sit here for 45 minutes in silence rather than let you say the line because you think it's time.
This all sounds so exhausting.
it's a thing. It's like that very Cassavetes thing of being like it has to be truthful. It
Right.
can't be like showy, or you can't be like capital A acting. It has to come from like
Trying to get you out of your head, right? Like trying to make
exactly.
you...
It's that thing like that Fincher thing of being like, if you do 50 takes, you're gonna break, and eventually you'll just become like a person.
That was the
just
whole
right.
thing, was just like trying to like get people to unlearn the artifice of all acting styles up until that point, But a lot of it, I don't know. I feel especially in today's day and age where we're decades past naturalism being the most, in vogue thing in acting. And I feel a lot of times it's more about this saying you've done it.
Right. It's like I got my degree, but right, you don't actually, use it every day or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know any of this. This all sounds so complicated to me. I'm like Laurence Olivier. I'm like, have you tried acting? That's what I would be like. I'm just like, say the words really loud. That'll probably do something.
Well, that's like when I went to NYU, and there's like I knew so many actors, and there's like a billion. Like if you go to NYU to be an actor, they put you're all in a different studio, and so they're all learning a different way to act. And I was just like, how are there so many different ways to do this? Like
I just always have felt it's not super practical to go pot committed for one school of acting. I don't think it often serves you very well to be like, this is always how I act. This is always my process, because the circumstances of the project you're working on might not be conducive to that process.
right.
I've always sort of tried to just like pick and choose shit for whatever works, but then sometimes when I look at work that I think is sloppy of mine, I'm like, oh, that's because I don't have like a fundamental like classical thing to fall back on.
But I also think some people like will like look at like a Daniel Day-Lewis or like a Christian Bale and be like, these guys do go like method every time. And so like that's what works. And it's like that you can't make that like broad statement of like this one thing will work for everyone, or like committing to one style will like work for everyone.
That also gets you fucking like Suicide Squad Joker, and also it's just like,
Jared Leto is like the offender,
right?
Of this.
Most material cannot sustain that level of commitment to a performance, right? Like most characters are not deeply written enough for you to be able to pack that much fucking methody shit into the performance. And also it's just like you know, most things these days, they don't give you any fucking time to rehearse. You know, you have to shoot like 20 pages in a day. It's just they're changing everything on the fly, they're rewriting stuff constantly. I mean, especially in TV, it's just very hard to have that sort of preciousness about your work.
They're not shooting 1 million feet of film as they did in the movie Mikey and Nicky.
Right.
1.5 million, actually.
Right. Everything feels a little more on rails than it was in the 70s.
Yeah. They gotta save their money or whatever. I don't know what they gotta do. But guys, are there scenes? I mean, Mikey and Nicky is a very difficult movie to pin down. I'm trying to think like what we need to talk about.
Because it's not like, I don't know, there aren't like they go to the graveyard, they go to the bar, they fight in the street, they go visit Carol Grace. Nicky goes to see his wife, which is a really good scene.
I was going to say we should. Those are the two things we should really talk about. I mean,
the two scenes with the women. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and the grave scene. I mean,
and when Mikey goes to his wife at the end, I think that scene. Like, I think all the women are really like, really great in this movie.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Joyce Van Patten plays Cassavetes' wife. Yes.
Jan.
And then Rose Auric is Annie. Also William Hickey is like the mob right-hand man who just has one of the best voices ever.
Yeah. The voice of Dr. Finkelstein.
Voice of Dr. Finkelstein. Yeah. Uncle Lewis in Christmas Vacation. Just rules. Do you know that she wanted the president of Paramount to play, I think, the Meisner role?
Yeah.
Possibly the Meisner role, but a gangster. Pretty funny.
Right. And then the chairman of Gulf and Western wouldn't let it happen.
You can't do that. How dare you? That's an immoral role for our president to be playing. Like, as if anyone would fucking know who that was. Right. It's not like audience is going to be like, Jesus, the president of Paramount?
Right. It was just Elaine May saying, fuck you. No one else was going to get it.
Yeah, exactly. Just, he's a gangster. It's a joke.
The Nelly scenes are just so brutal. I mean, because it's like Cassavetes keeps on pitch. I just keep on calling them by their actor names, but it's also because it's easy to get Mikey and Nicky confused as names. But he keeps on throwing out all these different ideas of what he wants to do. I mean, this movie, it's I was realizing it's like kind of similar to 25th Hour in a way, where it's like to some degree this guy knowing I'm probably not going to make it to tomorrow. What are the things I want to do on my last night
on Earth?
Right. He's kind of acting like you need to help me get out free. But really, I think he knows there's no real shot of that happening. Another thing, just I love the way people in the 70s talk about going to the movies. I think it's much like the beer thing, but I think it speaks to how different movie-going culture was in the 70s, where they just never talk about a particular movie. It's just the idea of like, I love the movies. Let's go see a movie. What time is it? 11:45 on a Tuesday?
Did you see the poster on the box office? An adult was $150. You could just go.
Right. It's just like, oh, let's just go. Why not? We get a beer and then go see a movie, and they both cost $1.
He's even like, there's 15 minutes of coming attractions.
A cartoon, a newsreel.
Yeah, you get it all.
Yeah. It sounds unbelievable. But he's like, they got a 24-hour candy stand. I love how much this guy loves candy.
I would love to just, like, a 24-hour movie theater sounds incredible. It's just like, it's 3 a.m. Might as well go see a picture.
Right now, a movie theater sounds incredible.
Don't get me started.
I agree. Like,
don't get me started.
The idea of it's sort of like, look, all right, like once it hits midnight, we only run 2 screens in this here multiplex, but like they're going if you want to just pop in. Yeah.
What's also the way that like even like people like Scorsese will talk about movie going when they were growing up, where it's just like you just show up. You just show up at whatever time you feel like it, and you come in, and maybe you're like 30 minutes before the end of one movie, but then you'll get to see like a cartoon and like a one-reeler, and then they'll play another movie, and then maybe you wait long enough that you see the first movie you came into late start up again, so then you catch up with it. Right. It was just kind of like, what's playing?
I used to work at a movie theater, and every so often you'd get a person who'd come in and say, what's playing soonest? What's playing next? And just buy a ticket for literally whatever.
A hero.
And I was always like, who are you? Like, what is your deal? I like this energy.
I agree with David. Heroic.
The music, that song, the real human being, that starts playing. I know it's about Sully, but when you saw that man, it was about him.
Yes.
He's a real hero.
Joe Biden comes out, gives him a Kennedy Center honor.
Yeah, right. He pins something to his chest. He goes like, "You're what makes America work, my friend.
You're great at seeing movies.
Come on, man.
Come on, dude. Come on, guy."
You know who's low key kind of funny?
Biden.
Joe Biden.
I'll say this. Just now I had more fun saying 2 sentences in a bad Joe Biden impression than I've had for 4 years of doing fucking bad Trump impressions.
We were all so stressed out. We're like, Joe Biden has to save the democracy. And I feel like we're just about to get to the point where it's like, you remember who's kind of like a funny old guy is Joe Biden.
I saw like a tweet today that was like, Joe Biden's team is looking into something. And I had a moment where I was like, oh yeah, he's the president.
He's the president.
He's the president of the United States. What he says goes.
Right. He's got the energy of a guy who's trying to break up a fight at a Margaritaville, Come on, guys.
I mean, I can't remember if it was Alex Perrine or Jamel Bowie or someone tweeted, like, remember when Corn Pop was real? Like that, like, he told that story and everyone was like, well, he's just having an episode. And then they like called people in Delaware in the 60s and like, yeah, we knew Corn Pop. He was this guy. He walked around with a razor blade. You had to look out for him.
Yeah,
he was a bad customer.
Yeah.
Do you think Joe Biden's in this movie? Do you think Joe Biden has ever seen a Cassavetes movie?
Yeah.
That's the sequel is Joey and Corn Pop.
Yeah.
that's Elaine May's follow-up.
I think almost definitely. Yeah. I don't know the last time Joe Biden saw a movie this challenging, but I think in the 70s he saw all of this shit.
Also, he was kind of hot when he was a younger man.
He was.
That is true.
He's sort of normie hot.
He was very hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did Joe Biden see Mikey and Nicky? It's a huge question.
I don't think so. Because this movie was kind of a flop.
He was already a U.S. senator when this film came out. I just want to point out.
Yeah.
This movie was a flop. It was underseen. It was not seen, I think is the best way to put it. They put it out in December.
It's what people say the movie wasn't released. It escaped. I mean, it was like a contractual obligation that they had to put it in a theater. But it had been years at this point. There was a whole calamity where a lot of the footage didn't sync up with the sound.
Yes.
She wouldn't stop filming. They tried to take the cut away from her. She hid reels in someone else's
and Peter
garage.
Falk. Peter Falk was also like stealing reels with her because at this point he had like put money into the movie.
Yeah.
And was like, it has to be hers.
I think the version we all know is the version that she screened later in the 80s.
It's the third
during
version.
some tribute.
There are 3 versions. There's the one that came out that she didn't really like. She did a cut in 1986 that then got screened and released on home video and everything and became the known version. And then the Criterion version now is even a little bit different. I could not get a comprehensive explanation of what the differences are, but this is like the 2019 final cut, as it were.
This is also really interesting to me because it's interesting to think of the web that like she and Kenneth Lonergan have like spun together.
Yeah.
Because it's like he had all that shit with Margaret. Jeannie Berlin is in Margaret. Like they both have like troubled release schedules, and then she's in the Waverly Gallery 2 years ago, like wins a Tony.
Lonergan's my favorite, and watching all these movies and reading about Elaine May, I just keep thinking like, oh, see, her career was essentially just 4 Margarets in a row.
Yeah, exactly.
Every time she made it a movie, it got caught up in a lawsuit.
You guys should do a Margaret bonus app. That should be Elaine's bonus app.
I want to do Lonergan. Does he have a movie? Am I crazy that he's working on a movie right now? Did I make that up?
I've been waiting for something. I hope so.
Because, he did that miniseries. He did Howard's End. I feel like that consumed him for a bit. Obviously, he does theater. I guess no. I guess I'm just sort of waiting on 4 movies is enough. You know,
That's the thing. I think 4 is just like the minimum for us. Richard Kelly and Kenneth Lonergan make a 4th movie challenge.
Right. Absolutely make a 4th movie challenge. Wait, Griff, I want to bring you back to the women. I want to bring Carol Gray scene especially.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So she has 2 scenes.
Yeah.
He's talking her up, right? He's sort of running through all the different things he's thinking about doing with Peter Falk. He wants to go visit his mother's grave. They have the scene on the bus where he gets in the fight. I mean, all that shit's so good. Yes, then they show up to her house, and it's this scene that has a huge Griffin energy of Cassavetes introduces Peter Falk to the woman he's been sleeping with, and then proceeds to just sleep with her in front of Peter Falk and say over and over again, pretend that no one else is here, which was a lot of high school for me.
You should clarify which guy you are, Griffin.
Peter Falk.
You're the Falkster in that
I'm
scenario.
the Falkster. Yeah. One guy's fucking and one guy's falking, and I was definitely falking.
I think her role in this movie is so wrapped up in kind of what being a woman is, where it's Cassavetes is oh, you can fuck her too, and then but then he gets mad at her for sleeping with other people, so it's what are you gonna get mad at her about, for not sleeping with people or for sleeping with people?
Right. And Falk is so cruel to her.
Falk,
Yeah.
They get violent with her.
But also Cassavetes is pushing him to be cruel, telling him that she likes it. Yes, that's a great point, Olivia. It does get into this sort of emotionally incurious, underdeveloped, abusive man who blames the woman for, why do you make me so upset?
Yeah.
You know?
And it's it's not her, buddy.
And also what's happening to Falk is the longer he's next to Cassavetes, the worse he's getting too. He is kind of infected by him the more time they're spending together. And he knows it, I think.
Yes. Which is probably why he's, created some distance from this guy. I mean, they both have young children, but Cassavetes doesn't even see his kid, who's much younger.
Right.
And Falk actually, knows who his son is, you know?
Yes.
But yes, it's this horrible scene where as Cassavetes and Nellie are sleeping together, you just stay on a close-up of Peter Falk just squirming there uncomfortably.
It's the close-up, but it's also the wide shot where it's they are on the left and you can see him in the kitchen just kind of sitting there.
Yes.
Uncomfortably.
But once the actual super physical shit is happening, then it's just on his face.
Yeah.
You're just hearing them, and you're hearing them deny that he's in the room. And then once they're done, they go back to that shot you're talking about, where Cassavetes meets him in the kitchen and is trying to tell him that no, you should have sex with her too. She sleeps with everybody. Just go over there, do this, do that. And you're watching her in the foreground listen to them speak as if she can't hear them. And it's so brutal. You just this pit in your stomach is growing just in dread about what's going to happen when Falk walks up to her. And then it's as bad as you imagine.
Yeah. There's nothing gets nothing is subverted or anything. It's you see it the way it's gonna go, and it just feels awful the whole time.
Right. And then when they leave there, he slaps her, she screams, they leave, and then Falk starts acting was this some prank on me? Were you setting me up to look like a fool?
Right.
To get rejected from her?
I think it's this really interesting thing where it's the woman is there not even as a person, but as a thing for them to it's a lens through which their relationship is working. It's she's not a person, she's an object, and Nicky is cool for sleeping with her, and then Mikey can't sleep with her, so it's affects their relationship, and it has nothing to do with how she feels about any of it. She's not even a person in the situation.
Right. And then when he goes back to her and she tries to be emotionally open with him, his explanation is so twisted about well, I heard you had slept with them and that made me angry. So then I wanted you to sleep with other people.
Yeah, after he kicks the door in,
Right.
like just like so violent from the jump of that scene.
But you have that scene too where he starts like chatting up the woman, and then her boyfriend comes in, tries to start a fight with him. Like, he is just a guy who feels like he creates chaos to keep himself entertained, you know?
Yeah.
And to some degree, it's like he just wants everyone to be spinning. He wants everyone to be spinning around him, and he wants himself to be the one sort of like centered force that everyone is revolving around.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then he goes to see his own wife.
Played by that's Joyce Van Patten.
That's Joyce
right?
Van Patten. Yeah.
The sister of Tim Van Patten. We know him well.
Mm-hmm.
Director of many a soprano.
Formerly married to Dennis Dugan, appears in the Grown Ups movies as Rob Schneider's wife.
Well, okay, he goes to his wife and he's like, "Listen, they're gonna kill me." He's like, "This is what's happening." And then he like goes to see his kid, and he just wants the kid to like put her hand around his finger, and she, a baby who was sleeping, obviously like does not want to do that, and that is kind of sad that he like wants this one moment with his child before he gets shot.
He knows it's over,
and he can't do it. And then they have that whole exchange where they like have their kiss, and it's like I don't like this, but I like get it. I get why you would do this. And then she like asks him to leave almost. She's like, "You gotta go now." Or
yeah, every scene in this movie is so brutal. I'm having a hard time, as you said.
especially at the end.
Like, David, you're saying it's hard to describe the plot of the movie, but it's also like it's hard to like relive it. It's hard to like explain the things that happen in the scene. It hurts.
It really bums me out, this movie. I will say, every time I've seen it, I think I've seen it 3 times. I really am in kind of a crummy mood for the next hour and a half. You know what I mean? I just sort of feel, because the just him dying and him screaming and yelling and banging on the door is just so, it's humiliating. It's like, you know, that we're cutting back to Falk and his wife, and they're like, you know, they're sort of living through it, and she's saying, "Oh no," like, it's just so. God, it really like gives me the heebie-jeebies, which is, in my opinion, very successful of it.
The naturalism is off-putting.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, it's a movie I respect greatly, and it is easily my least favorite of her 4 movies, probably because it's the only one that isn't funny. The other ones at least have comedy to cut the discomfort, you know? And this one just is like a torrid watch. I get it being your favorite. I mean, this is, once again, I'm in a minority on this one.
I think it might be my favorite.
It's also like, there are a couple funny moments, but like, it's like
there's funny moments.
Like, I think one of the things this movie does really well is like sometimes they'll be fighting with each other, and then one of them will like say something that's like, "Come on," like blah, 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 and it's like a funny moment. And that again is just like, that is what it's like when you're like fighting with a friend you've known for a while, and you're like, but we can still like make a joke, right? Like,
I mean, "This guy's enormous" is my personal favorite laugh line, but there's a lot of little bits like that.
I think Nick, you're making me forget the Kaddish is really funny for some reason.
I mean, that's it's so funny, but it's also like, you are kind of just like, "Oh my God, Nicky, shut up!" Like,
but it's also like they're in like a Catholic graveyard, and he's saying the Kaddish. It's like.
It's so, Peter Falk is such a sweetie in that scene. It's crazy.
But Cassavetes is so pathetic in this. Like, it's not that he usually plays high status characters. Although, I mean, I think as a for-hire actor, he was so intense, he often did, right? But in his own movies, he plays broken men, but he's not as sad as he is in this, you know?
Yeah, he's cooler usually, honestly.
Yes, he's usually a lot cooler than he is here.
Yeah.
And this guy is just so transparently miserable.
Yeah.
And destructive, you know, to everyone who comes into his orbit.
Absolutely. Cassavetes. Are we going to do him one day, Griff?
He was
That'd
in
be
the
a whole
bracket. I
project.
assume he got bodied.
That would be kind of a bummer of a miniseries, you guys.
I mean, this is why I'm guessing that no one voted for him.
I mean, it's a very it's a miniseries we could wrap our arms around. It's not. He doesn't make that many movies.
No.
It's like 12 total or something. You know, like
think
it's
10.
certainly
Yeah.
doable. Yeah. He's facing off against Robert Altman. Whew.
Oh, he's gonna lose.
I don't know if he's going to survive.
It will have happened at this point.
I know, but we're predicting the future. But I think
Yes.
you're right, Griffin. I don't think he gets out of that first round matchup. And also, I think in real life, Altman would have crushed him. Altman was like a brick shithouse,
Yeah.
and Cassavetes, as much as we're saying he looks tall, like he wasn't a big guy.
No, I think he's like 5'6" or something. Like he and I could have probably like looked eye to eye.
Do you know that my dad went drinking with both of them once?
Huh?
Well, your dad went drinking with Altman a lot.
My dad was Altman's drinking buddy for like
episode.
5 years. Yeah, the worst 5 years of Altman's career. My dad was the guy who had to like carry him out of bars.
But so Cassavetes just showed up at some point, or like they just had a wild night together?
I mean, for reasons I don't want to delve into, and I haven't followed up with him, he's never really disclosed a lot of details of what happened that night. I think that's probably for my own safety.
Did they buy 15 cups of cream?
Ring. Oh, jeez. Okay. Olivia, David, Ben, just hold on. Let me just deal with this quickly. It's not going to be a Columbo. I'm sure this will be an easier, milder, quicker phone call. Let me just pick this up. Click.
And one more thing.
God damn it. Ghost of Columbo. I should have known. Just when I thought it was safe, when you seemed to be shuffling out the door, you quietly turn around, look over your shoulder, hold up that one finger, leave me uncertain which eye to focus on. What is it, Columbo? What is this one more thing?
Are you tired of taking trips to the post office?
Yeah, I mean, sure, Columbo. Let's face it, taking trips to the post office is probably, not how I really want to be spending my time. I'd say, at least for me, that's why I recommend mailing and shipping online at stamps.com. Stamps.com allows you to mail and ship anytime, anywhere, right from your computer. You can send letters, you can ship packages, pay a lot less with discounted rates from USPS, UPS, and more. Stamps.com has saved businesses thousands of hours and tons of money. Because with Stamps.com, you get the services of the post office and UPS all in one place. And that place is wherever you want it to be. Your bedroom, your office, your garage, you pick. Plus, you get big discounts on mailing and shipping rates, okay? Stamps.com brings the services of the U.S. Postal Service and UPS right to your computer. It's a must-have for any business. Whether you're a small office sending out invoices, an online seller shipping out orders, a giant warehouse sending thousands of packages a day, or even a charter member of the Mug of the Month Club, Stamps.com can handle it all with ease. You simply use your computer to print official U.S. postage 24/7 for any letter, any package, any class of mail, anywhere you want to send. Once your mail is ready, just schedule a pickup or drop it off. It's that simple. Because with Stamps.com, you get discounts up to 40% off of post office rates and up to 62% off of UPS shipping rates. It's hard to stutter on 62 in that sort of like Chicago Bulls announcer ramp up way. Not to mention, Stamps.com is a fraction of the cost of those expensive postage meters. Stamps.com is a no-brainer, saving you time and money. It's no wonder nearly 1 million small businesses already use Stamps.com. And Columbo, I hope you're paying attention here, because sometimes it seems like, oh, this guy, right, he's a pile of laundry. He's not noticing anything. I want you to be locked in and listening here, okay? Stop wasting time going to the post office and go to Stamps.com instead. There's no risk. And with my promo code CHECK, you get a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus free postage and a digital scale. No long-term commitments or contracts. Just go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage, and type in CHECK. That's Stamps.com, promo code CHECK. Stamps.com, never go to the post office again.
One more thing.
What, Columbo? What?
How you doing?
Not great. I appreciate you asking.
Yeah, I kind of picked up on that energy listening to the pod.
Feels like you're not the only one. Getting a lot of unprompted messages from strangers asking how I'm holding up.
Anything I can do for you?
No, it's just like a year into a global pandemic. I'm very eager to be out of this. My health has been fighting against me. I'm just stressed out.
Okay.
I mean, I do appreciate you asking. It's just there's nothing you can really do. This sort of, outside of your control.
Well, good luck, kid.
Okay.
And one more thing.
What? What is it? What's the one more thing?
Goodbye.
Very, very odd way to end a conversation.
Mikey and Nicky, is there anything else we want to say before we play the box office game? Are we playing the box office game?
I mean, have we done 76 before? The movie very abruptly ends with him.
Yeah, that last scene is kind of
getting moited.
brutal.
He tracks Mikey back to his home after Mikey and Nicky have split up, and Mikey has spent a good chunk of time with Emmett Walsh, meeting Sanford Meisner, sort of defending himself for how much Emmett Walsh has fucked it up and not him. And it goes back to his wife. Nicky tracks him down, bangs on the door. They just grab each other and sort of like stand there in silence trying to wait him out, and then just fucking out of nowhere. I mean, it's also just the fact that she doesn't cut to some reverse angle of a car pulling up, right? You're just looking at Cassavetes on one side of a door knocking, and then all of a sudden a bunch of squibs go off.
Yeah, and it's that very, like, I keep beating this drum, but it is that very theatrical thing of it's heightening, and then he gets shot and it's just like cut to black. Like,
right.
That's it. It's
done.
Over. Like, done.
Roll the credits.
Roll the credits. He's
What's
dead.
his final line? Doesn't he just say, like, you should go in the bedroom?
Yeah, he's like, you should go to sleep or something.
Yeah,
Like,
Right.
and she is giving a really good performance there where she like keeps trying to explain to him why she can't let him in, and she's like running out of things to be like, I'm sick. Like, he's not home. Like, and then they have to barricade the door. Like,
They have to bear it because he's kicking it down. But he also is, his heart is also kind of not in it in a weird way, as much as he is so exposed, in that, like, he just keeps asking her to open the door. Like, he should just barrel through the door or whatever.
or like run or something. It's like he's
run,
like
exactly.
very committed to like staying in front of the door.
It's like he wants to die with his friend, and kind of hold it over him, like in this kind of sad way.
I think it also is like, if his friend isn't willing to let him in, then he's done fighting. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like, if his friend won't
Yes,
let him in anymore, then he's already lost the battle.
How's he going to survive? Right, exactly.
Because I think at one point they're like, this is his only friend. This is like his last friend. And so it's like, if he loses, he's already lost his family. If he loses Mikey, it's like, what's the point?
Yeah.
Oh boy. I mean, I think we've done this year, Griffin. I can't remember.
Maybe Caged Heat.
Well, exactly. Right. All those Demi movies. I mean, what was the number one movie in 1976?
Okay, she's 74. The number one movie of 1976. It's the year before Star Wars.
True.
Jaws is 75, correct?
Yeah.
Is it not Rocky?
It's Rocky. It's not Jaws. Jaws is 76, right?
75.
5, like you said. Yeah, it's Rocky. Yeah.
Rocky is the number one movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is. It's
Wow.
number one.
Wow.
It was a big hit.
Yeah.
People liked it.
Doesn't Rocky win a screenplay Oscar?
No, only nominated.
Okay. I always like switch it up in my head as to like what happens, because Rocky wins Best Picture.
It wins picture, director, score, right?
Editing, not score.
It doesn't win score?
Not even nominated for score, so maybe there was something up. That doesn't make any sense that it wasn't nominated, because the score is incredible.
Yeah.
Best score goes to The Omen, which, to be fair, is an iconic score.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't know why. Maybe they made some ruling on that. And it doesn't win song either. It loses to, the number 2 movie of 1976. A big movie with a big musical star.
Is it like The Way We Were?
Close.
Is it a Barbara
Right star.
Streisand?
It's a Barb.
Is it Yentl?
No, it's a bad movie.
It's a bad movie, and it's not. Is it a musical, or is it a movie with a big song?
It's a musical. Not like
Is it the Barbara A Star Is Born?
It's A Star Is Born.
That was the number 2 movie of its
That's
year.
crazy.
Barbara.
Because that movie is not very good.
No, it stinks.
It was like slammed at the time. People didn't even like it then.
Yeah, it was one of those things where, like, even though it was a big hit, like by any means,
It lost
was
money,
expected to be an even bigger
Damn,
hit, right?
really? Movies could just be hits in the 70s.
They sure could, Olivia. Number 3 is another famous remake bomb that still made a ton of money.
It's a famous remake bomb that still made a lot of money. It's a 76 remake. What decade is the original from?
30s.
It's a 30s movie, remade in the 70s.
And it's been remade again, my friend. And let me tell you, this fella that this movie's about, he's going to be in screens this year.
He's going to be in screens this year? Is it a real person or it's a character who's been rebooted several times?
It's a character that's been rebooted several times, and he's not human.
What?
He's not human. Bumblebee?
Yeah, Bumblebee from the 30s.
I think George Cukar's Bumblebee is the best one, personally.
Yeah, I agree. That the one where he's a movie star, not a singer.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, come on, Griff. In fact, this is probably the movie that Mikey and Nicky was going up against because it came out Christmas of 1976. Come on.
Not human in like an animal way or in like a robot way?
You're sure he's sure an animal.
He's sure an animal. Oh,
He's sure an animal.
Oh, it's my good friend.
Yeah. What's his name?
My good friend King Kong.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Kingy and Kongy.
I'll say this, one of my favorite actors.
You like that guy?
I think he's such a compelling screen presence.
What does Kyle Chandler say in that trailer? He says something crazy.
Oh.
He's like, King Kong's out there and he's hurting people.
It's yes. And no, wait, I think it's Rebecca Hall says King Kong bows to no one.
Yes,
right?
that's true.
Or is it, yes, Kong bows to no one.
Yeah.
Kyle Chandler says Godzilla's hurting people and we don't know why.
It's funny, King Kong
Did we
bows
have to know why before? Was that an issue?
King Kong bows to no one was one of the prompts that Sandy Meisner would often use in his classes.
King Kong bows to no one.
Yeah.
I love that Rebecca Hall this year is releasing her like directorial debut from like a really touching Nella Larson novella and also is in King Kong.
My favorite thing about Godzilla vs. Kong is it's got, like all these movies, it's got a bunch of actors in it. And it's like Rebecca Hall. And I'm like, is she in the other ones? And if you told me yes, I'd be like, I guess she was. I just don't remember. Like, Kyle Chandler's definitely in one of them, right? Like,
the franchise is so bizarre in terms of which human characters they carry over and which ones they don't. It also is, I think someone on the Blank Check Reddit was saying this when the trailer dropped, but just like, for the 3 of them that have come out at this point, I guess by the time this episode comes out, people will have seen Godzilla vs. Kong and will know who wins. But the 3 that we have seen at this point all under-deliver on the human element. Like, all 3 of those movies fail in a major way on the human front, and each one has just a wildly overqualified, overstuffed cast. Like, each of those movies has 15 names above the title where you're like, wow, all of these people, and one of them kind of makes an impression in each movie.
Should we all guess who wins? Should we all guess if it's going to be Godzilla or Kong?
If it's not Godzilla, I don't know what's going on.
I think it's
here.
going to
Then
be
Kong
Kong.
cheated because, like,
I think they set it up in the trailer.
I mean, he's the underdog. Right, yeah, because like Godzilla is a walking nuclear weapon.
Sure.
And
Yes.
King Kong is a tall ape.
and King Kong has compassion for humans. It's a love-hate relationship, but he has moments of vulnerability. I think, I want to put on the record, I think they team up to go against Mechagodzilla, and I think Godzilla sacrifices himself. So I think King Kong is the final victor of the film, but who he is beating is Mechagodzilla rather than Godzilla, if that makes sense.
Because the tagline says one will fall, which is a little different from one will definitively win.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just because one of them's going to die.
I think they both go against a common enemy, and one of them will die, and one of them will defeat the enemy, and King Kong will be victorious. After all, it is in his name. He is the king. Kong bows to no one.
I do just want to say that the Edwards Godzilla, which I really love, I think makes the humans being little ants a strength. That's why I like that movie. Whereas like the fucking King of the Monsters, we're spending so much time with humans on their like flying boat, and they're like following Godzilla on a map, and I'm like, I hate these people. I don't want to talk to these guys are idiots.
I don't know. There's something in between the two that is my perfect American Godzilla movie, and no one's hit it yet.
I love the Edwards Godzilla. I think that thing's freaking incredible.
Love it, except for the human stuff, which I find so annoying, and a lot of that just comes down to my Aaron Taylor Johnson problems.
But I think I like him now.
Oh, David.
Oh, because of Tenet?
Yeah, just because of what he's up to these days.
He executed a temporal pincer movement on your opinions.
Temporal pincer movement.
Don't you think so? It's a temporal pincer movement, mate.
He's good in that movie.
Objectively good.
He's the best he's ever been in that movie.
I'm glad we're all kind of Tenet stands here. Ben, how do you feel about Tenet?
I liked it a lot. It confused me. I still don't get it, but
You don't have to. I think once you relinquish the idea of getting it, it becomes much more fun.
Agreed.
It's about vibes. That movie is entirely about like, isn't it fun to tell a story?
You.
Great vibes.
Yup. Aren't movies cool?
yeah, I look forward to like being back to normal life and smoking weed with somebody and being really high and being like trying to figure it out, man.
Trying to piece it together.
I think if I got super stoned and watched Tenet with like a group of people, we'd all really understand it.
You know what's a thing to really look forward to? Like repertory screenings of the movies we had to watch at home. Like, I just am excited to see like Tenet at Nighthawk at midnight 2 years from now.
I can't wait to see the Kaufman movie or like, there's so many examples of that. Like movies.
I mean,
that
our Blanky Awards episode will have come out by this point, but I just watched the Kaufman movie and the entire time thought to myself, this would probably be my favorite movie of the year if I had seen it in a theater, and at home, I just can't handle it.
Should watch it again.
You know, like I still like it a lot. I don't say it as a negative, but it's just like that's a lot of movie. It's tough to take, and at home when your phone is there and you can escape from the discomfort of it, it is hard.
Yeah, having the phone really just like, it's hard to not just like second screen.
Or just be like, I should clean that up. I should pick that thing up off the floor.
Right.
You know?
Like there's no third place. It's just like, oh, I'm going to put my phone away and like sit in the dark room.
Yeah. I hate it. What's the number 4 movie of 1976?
This is why I feel like we've done this before. It's a comedy with a famous duo.
I don't think we've done this before.
Okay, fine. But this, because you talk about this movie a lot. So maybe we've just talked about it before. You talk about
Is it Silver Streak?
Yes.
Yeah, I just talk about it a lot.
You just talk
Wait,
about it
you know who's also in that movie? Ned Beatty.
Ned Beatty.
He sure is.
Huge 76 for him.
And King Kong is also like Grodin's big fucking Heartbreak Kid follow-up in so many ways.
Isn't Silver Streak the one where you're like, there's not actually a ton of Pryor in that, and it's like,
yeah, he has like 3 scenes,
right? But they just sort of are discovering the chemistry there, and then it's the Wilder Pryor movies are really about the two of them.
Absolutely, right. I just think that movie's reputation is very bizarre because it is just kind of like a gentle Hitchcock riff starring Gene Wilder and Jill Clayburgh, where they hired Richard Pryor to be like the colorful, funny character for 2 scenes, and then they had such good chemistry. I think they shoehorned it back in for like a 3rd scene, but he is barely a part of that movie. I think he doesn't enter until like an hour and 15 minutes in.
Right. Number 5, Griffin. It's guys being dudes, but in a much more dramatic and serious true story kind of way. I love this movie.
Guys being dudes and a much more dramatic and serious. It's not.
It's another
Deer
Best
Hunter.
Picture nominee.
Is it All the President's Men?
It's All the President's Men.
Yeah, that is guys being dudes.
Man, the number 5 movie of its year.
Outgrossing. Here's what's next. The Omen.
Wow.
The Bad News Bears.
Wow.
The Enforcer, which I think is the second. No, it's the 3rd Dirty Harry. A movie called In Search of Noah's Ark, which is one of those like pseudo documentary movies where it's a guy who's like, I found Noah's Ark.
Right. Right. It was the Where in the World is Osama bin Laden of its day, where everyone went to see it and they were like, there's fucking nothing here.
And then Midway, which is like one of those movies that like has an insane cast. It's a big war movie. It's like Charlton Heston, Henry Fonda, Glenn Ford, Hal Holbrook, Toshiro Mifune, and you're like, is that movie any good? They're like, no, God, it's awful. It stinks.
The garbage.
But it was expensive and it was a big deal.
Yeah. It was in focus.
Next year is Star Wars. Like, like you said, like it's all over. I mean, Jaws has already happened or whatever, but like this is the last time.
But Jaws at this point is like maybe an aberration. They're like, maybe that's a once in a generation phenomenon. There isn't going to be a Gone with the Wind every year. And then Star Wars comes out and they're like, there should be a Star Wars every year.
I think that also is like, that makes sense. It makes sense to me that All the President's Men made that much money just because like Watergate had kind of just happened. And so like when you don't have like an MCU, you're like, I kind of want to see how this thing that I read about happened starring Robert Redford. Yes. Like
but also like not that it's comparable because there's an ocean between them in quality, but it's just like the fucking Comey Showtime miniseries, everyone was like, oh, no, thank you. I have no interest in watching this. And I feel like any depiction of the Trump years would have a similar response of just like, I don't care how well executed it is. I don't want to see any version of this story told.
Do you think in a few years, depending on how things go, that could possibly shift? It was wild to release it while he was still the president.
I don't know if like we will ever want that. But I could see maybe like our kids would be like, what was that? And I'd be like, I actually cannot go see that movie with you.
I'll be like, go fucking watch the Comey Rule on Showtime. Yeah, I can't talk about it.
Right. That's the other thing. I just think the media being what it is, we're so fucking burnt out on it. Like by the time that All the President's Men comes out, people know the story, but like they couldn't kind of imagine the day-to-day of it necessarily, Whereas we've just been inundated with so much reporting and so much conflicting
reporting. And it's also like All the President's Men is like so much about them piecing together the story, and it's like, which fucking story would you pick? Like what? Right. Like, well, you'd have to do the whole 4 years, and I can't actually physically, I cannot do that.
And if you pick any one story, you'd be like, but why'd they focus on that? That's a distraction from the real thing. David, here's just a fun exercise I was doing in my head while you were listing those top 10 movies. Just to go like, okay, so who are the 10 stars of the biggest films of this year, right? You're like, okay, so it's Sylvester Stallone.
He's new.
Yeah.
He's different.
Right. A brand new movie star is the star of the number one film of the year, right?
Right. It's a phenomenon. You can't wait to meet him. That's the kind of thing, right? Like, yeah. Okay, number 2.
Then number 2, Barbra Streisand.
Big star, established star, Oscar
Brooklyn.
winner. And Chris Christopherson, who is a huge musician and, a star in his own right.
Number 3.
Okay. Number 3. Can you tell me who's in King Kong?
Grodin, Bridges, Lang. I guess Bridges is the biggest name, but arguably Kong is the guy selling the movie, right?
None of them are on the poster. Only King Kong is on the poster. Yes.
But their names are on there. It's just a big illustration of Kong.
I mean, their names are not on the poster at all.
I think you and my friend, have been looking at different posters. I don't know what to tell you. It's a classic 2 guys looking at 2 different posters situation.
The most exciting original motion picture event of all time. Wild thing to say about a King Kong remake.
I was going to say, because I was going down this rabbit hole looking at the King Kong posters. That is the most arrogant tagline I have ever heard.
It really is.
Not even of the year, the most exciting original motion picture of all time.
All time.
Wild.
It's King Kong, he just climbs a different building. That's the only take they had.
Also, it is funny that Jaws had like just come out.
Yeah.
And they were like, this is more exciting, actually.
It's true. Jaws had already eaten his lunch, even though he comes out a year later.
So let's say Kong's the star of that picture. Number 5.
Well, number 4 is Wilder, Clayburgh, Pryor, as we said.
Right, but let's say Wilder. I mean, if we want to like focus on one,
yes,
right?
Wilder, for sure.
Yeah.
5 is Redford Hoffman.
Yeah.
I mean, in the iconic Redford/Hoffman billing too, which I love. Not first names, yes.
But you also like going down that list. It's like Gregory Peck, who's kind of like an old school movie star at this point. Mathau, definitely an old school movie star at this point.
Eastwood. Noah. Kind of an old school star.
Ark. That was the billing on that one. It was Noah / Ark.
Ark.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, and then of course Best Picture goes to Rocky.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. I mean, the Palme d'Or goes to Taxi Driver. Like,
Yeah.
it's a pretty good year.
It's a great year. It's a great year, and Ned Beatty ran the table on it.
He fucking did. This
did.
is like the year. This is the last year that John Wayne is in a movie. This is the year The Shootist comes out.
Wow.
This is the first year the Steadicam, right? The Steadicam debuts
Bound for
in Bound
Glory.
for Glory.
Yeah.
Right. And then this is the year that Rocky Horror becomes a midnight movie. And this is the year that George Lucas starts to make Star Wars. Like, it does feel like a bit of a... And Elaine May is essentially about to be run out of Hollywood.
I was gonna say, and they made Mikey and Nicky.
Yeah. This is the year that Elaine May says, fuck you, I'm done. And it takes, one of the biggest movie stars in the world 10 years later begging her to make a movie for him with a guaranteed green light to pull her out of, retirement from filmmaking.
Right.
But she was out at this point.
She's out.
She was very happy to go back to theater.
Went back to theater and being a cool person.
Yeah, just being a generally rad lady.
Have you guys ever watched the Nichols and May sketches?
Yeah, been listening, watching a lot of them. Yeah, and prep for this. They were the fucking coolest.
They're just so fucking funny.
I know, but I just can't get over how cool they were.
Yeah.
In a way that comedians rarely are,
And hot.
And right, they were cool and hot without being like, I'm a comedian and now I'm doing a GQ photo shoot.
Yeah. They're also it's really interesting to think about both their careers as directors and then watch those sketches, because they are really doing the thing that both of them like from their actors, which is just kind of living. They're not hyping it up for yucks. They're there's every heightening really makes sense, is kind of grounded in a real thing.
Yeah.
They're just incredible.
Yeah.
They're the coolest.
Olivia, you're the coolest. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Guys,
Being dudes.
had so much fun.
That's good. I'm glad you had so much fun.
I'm glad you guys did Elaine May. You got to do Nichols at some point.
We gotta do Nichols.
Is he on March Madness? Is he going to win March Madness?
Not this year. We
No.
put him in last year.
He would be fun, though.
We'll do him at some point. He's
It's not that many movies.
No.
But we would have to do an Angels in America bonus, I would insist.
Yeah.
God, who's gonna win though? That's the real question.
Who
'Cause
is going to win? I think John Carpenter is going to win. I think there's going to be
Yeah.
Carpenter favoritism and Ben energy. People are going to want to support Ben. Because, Olivia, we've broken the brackets up. We each have a quadrant.
Yeah.
Oh, fun.
So Ben picked 8, I picked 8, David picked 8, and then we have one quadrant we asked 8 of our recurring guests to each pick one.
Oh, that is so fun.
Ben's quadrant's up against my quadrant, is that right? Or is Ben up against
I actually don't know.
Okay. I don't know. That's probably unexciting stuff to talk about because people at this
Yeah.
point know who it is.
That's a great bet. I'm into that. Carpenter fucking rules.
Don't you think so, Griff? I don't know. For some reason, I'm
think there's
feeling
a good
Carpenter.
chance. Yeah, I don't know.
And they
We'll
like
see.
to pick a long one. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Olivia,
Griffin.
Iconography.
Best in the biz.
I think it's funny because we haven't done iconography in a minute because Io and I are both very busy people. And so now I'm kind of just a private citizen who has nothing to promote, but just likes coming on the pod.
Olivia,
I'm just hanging out.
you're the greatest private citizen I know.
Yeah.
How was Carol Grace described?
You have a wide social circle. No, go ahead, Griff.
No, I would just add on to that Olivia is known for her wit and good company.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That is my dream. My dream my entire life has been to be a woman about town. That's all I've ever wanted.
I mean, Olivia, you were tweeting about Fran Lebowitz, which is exactly the thing, where it's
Yeah.
I do a couple books 40 years ago, and then people just pay to listen to me talk.
That is my dream. If someone listening would like to give me a book deal, I could crank out a book for you and then just kind of coast on it, go to some cool dinner parties. That's what I want for the next 60 years of my life.
The fucking anti-Fran Lebowitz pushback is the most predictable and,
get
and
outta here.
lame shit I've ever seen in my life. You're just fucking jealous that she cracked the code.
Yeah.
She got
Exactly.
She got to live her whole life just being a cranky person who complains about everything being bad. You're just angry
Right.
that isn't your life. She's the only one who figured it out.
And her fundamental take on life is anyone who has sex is cool and anyone who doesn't isn't. And the more the arc of the universe is bending towards the virgins, and I hate it. That's like her whole philosophy. And I'm like, hell yeah, Fran.
Like, the thing that has truly brought me the most joy in the last year has been watching Pretend It's a City and watching Martin Scorsese think that everything that Fran Lebowitz says is the funniest thing a single person has ever said. He laughs so hard at every one of her jokes in a way that I'm like, that's who you need in your life.
It makes me want Scorsese to be like someone's fucking Andy Richter. Like some talk show needs to just
Do a
hire
podcast.
Scorsese for a residency.
Or he just laughs at all your jokes.
And he does the full body laugh thing. Like he winces and his shoulders
He's
shake.
such a good laugher.
Oh, that's the other thing I wanted to say is that when this is all over, I would love if any New York-based theater would let me show a double screening of Mikey and Nicky and After Hours, which are two movies
of course.
I think would go great back to back.
Yeah.
Love like a late night in the city movie.
I'm gonna start a movie theater with my Reddit money. I didn't make any money on Reddit, but I'm gonna pretend that I did, and we'll do that.
I feel like After Hours is a movie where if I tried to watch that now, I would become an uncontrollable sobbing
You'd be a
mess.
sad boy.
Yeah, it's just this is all the shit we don't have right now. Anyway, thank you all for listening.
Yeah.
Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. I want to say thank you to Marie Barty for our social media. Thank you to our editing team, Alex Barron and AJ McKeon. Thanks to Leigh Montgomery and the Great American Novel for our theme song, Pat Reynolds and Joe Bowen for our artwork. Go to blankies.reddit.com for some real nerdy shit. Go to our Shopify page for some real nerdy shirts. Tune in next week for Ishtar, what is tragically Elaine May's fourth and final movie for now.
Dakota Johnson.
For now.
Hopefully Dakota Johnson will come through for us. But am I ready to talk Ishtar. I've been waiting years to talk about Ishtar on this podcast, David. This is the one.
So excited.
And you can subscribe to our Patreon where we're talking about those Trek movies. We're voyaging home or going beyond or entering the final frontier or one of those things.
Beam us up.
Beam us up on Patreon.
Absolutely.
And as always, at the end of the day, this podcast is known for having a wide social circle and also known for its wit and good company.